I think everyone is in the room today, so we are ready to start. And I think we are. Just a second.
I think we have quorum right now, but we're waiting for Wendy, I believe. And I also believe that Diana will be showing up later today, this morning.
So I believe we have a quorum, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I can move
Yes.
on with the meeting. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is our second day of the board meeting. It's February 11, and the time is 9:02. My name is Max Disposti, pronounce him, him. And we are convening again at February 11, 2022, Board of Behavioral Science meeting. I'm the board chair. And I would like to remind everyone that's present that the board is a consumer protection agency that is charged with administering and enforcing the board's laws. Where protections of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protections of the public shall be paramount. The meeting today is being conducted consistent with the Government Gavin Newsom Executive Order N-1-22 that is issued on January 5th, 2022, and the provisions of Government Code Section 11133. I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues, and the meeting moderator will open the lines as appropriate. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes per agenda item. The moderator will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting, the meeting of today. And moderator, I know that you already pre-announced some of the how to go about to interact with us, but if you could please provide the audience instructions on how they may participate during the meeting when the time is right. Thank you so much again.
Certainly, this is the moderator, Ann Fisher. When it is appropriate, we will open up the Q&A feature of WebEx, and that is the forum in which you can express you would like to make a comment. So when that is open, we will display instructions on the screen. You'll hit the question mark icon and then type the word comment and send, and we will accept comments in the order received. And each person, as Chair Disposti has said, will have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, moderator. And I think this is the time where we're actually calling the meeting to order. So I believe Christina Kitamura is on with us, and she can call for the roll.
Okay, and roll call. Max Disposti.
Here, public member and board chair.
Crystal Anthony.
Here, LCSW member.
Ross Serlick.
Here, a public member.
Susan Friedman.
Here, public member.
Justin Huff.
Here, LMFT member.
Christopher Jones.
Here, LEP member.
Abigail Ortega.
Here, LCSW member.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Here, public member.
John Sovek.
Here, LMFT member. My pronouns are he, him.
Wendy Strack, not in yet. Annette Walker.
Present, public member, pronouns she, her, and hers.
And for the record, Yvette Willis is absent. At the moment, Wendy Strack is absent, and Diana Herwick is absent.
Christina, Wendy is here. She's waving desperately at the screen right now.
Okay. Wendy Strack.
Maybe she's muted.
I was just going to say Wendy seems to be unmuted, but we're not hearing her voice. Often what happens is if you log out and log back in, that fixes it. Otherwise, you're welcome to try the audio video options at the top of the screen. And it looks like she's chosen to log out and look back in. Thank you.
We currently have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator, again. And thank you, Christina. Okay, so although we did this yesterday, but we do have two new board members that just joined our team, and it's Miss Abigail Ortega and Miss Annette Walker. Miss Ortega, she's a LCW member, and Miss Walker, she's a public member. So perhaps Miss Ortega, if you would like to start first, just to share a little bit about yourself so that we have new audience today and everyone will have the pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Good morning, everyone. Abigail Ortega. So I'm excited and honored to be here with all of you, and a little bit about me. Been practicing, became a social worker about 12 years ago, and have served in different settings, ranging from like school, home-based services, outpatient, and community medical centers. And although I've served birth to adulthood, the majority has been focused on children and adolescents. And I am now in private practice. So again, so excited to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Welcome again. And now we have Ms. Walker. Hi there.
Yes, good morning, fellow board members. I am excited to join you on the Board of Behavioral Sciences. If I could just quickly thank Governor Newsom for this appointment opportunity and his incredible staff to help get us through the onboarding process. Not to mention DCA and the BBS staff that helped us to get through to this moment. Again, a little bit about me. My background is in higher education and diversity, equity, and inclusion training. I previously served 8 years as an elected official on the Board of Education in Hayward, California. I elected not to run for re-election in 2020 to relocate. Who knew COVID was coming? But I knew my grandchildren were. So I relocated to Southern California, where I now reside in Corona, approximately 25 minutes from my only child, my daughter, Alana, who lives in Ontario with my two beautiful grandchildren. I have two under the age of 3, and we spent a lot of time together. So that brought me to this region, and I'm not done with my calling to serve others. And so I'm so pleased that the governor has appointed me to this position so that I can continue to serve our consumers and protect their rights and be that change that I hope to see in the world. So I hope to make a difference and make impact with this board. I can see we have our work, a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm up for the challenge. So again, thank you, public members that are on this call, and my fellow board members for a warm welcome, and staff. Thank you.
Ms. Walker, thank you so much for sharing also a little bit about your family, and we are honored to have you both here from now on that we're BBS.
Can I just note, I am Dr. Walker, not to be so formal or anything.
No, please, you're absolutely right. Dr. Walker, absolutely. We know how much, how hard we work for that. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Walker. Okay, we are moving to agenda item, I believe item 10, and which is our consent calendar for the November 4th and 5th, 2021 board meeting. So if there are any, hold on for a second. Yes, we're just looking for approval for the consent calendar for the November 4th and 5th. Any motion? Any motions and any comments as well?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the November 4th and 5th, 2021 board meeting minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy Strack.
That motion.
And then someone else's second. I'm sorry, I couldn't see you.
Who is that motion?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chris Jones. So we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any edits? Okay. So I think we're good to go. So we have Christina.
Max, this is John Sovek.
Yes. Hi, John Sovek.
Hi. There's actually is either an edit or correction.
Please.
So on day 1, when we were in item 6 with Christopher William Bishop, in lines 4 and 5, it recognized him as Christopher Bishop. On line 7, it calls a Mr. Hassan was sworn in. I think there may have just been a copy edit challenge.
Okay, it looks like, thank you for pointing that out. I totally missed that. So at this point, definitely, because those are not substantial change. I mean, they're important changes, but not substantial. I think we can add that change to our consent calendar. Am I correct, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just call out any changes that need to be done, and we can add that as what the motion would be to make any.
Oh, if you'd like. Okay, that would be to approve the November 4th to 5th, 2021 board meeting minutes as amended.
Wonderful. Thank you both for the support. And since we have a motion, I think now we can, moderator, we can open to our audience if there are any comments.
Certainly, this is the moderator. And if you would like to make a comment on any of the consent calendar items, you can look for the question mark inside a box icon, typically in the lower right of your computer screen, or if you're on a mobile device, behind the 3-dot other options. Simply type the word comment into the text box and hit send, and we will recognize people in the order their comment was received. If you are dialing in on a old-style telephone, you can hit *3 to raise your hand.
Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome. I do not see any requests for public comment. I can close that public comment feature.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so we're back to the board with a motion and a second, a motion that was edited to add the non-substantial changes. And I believe, unless there are any other comments, and thank you again, John Savek, for noticing that error. I think we can go to vote. So Christina, if you can take the vote, thank you.
Crystal Anthony?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Ross Ehrlich?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Dr. Diana Herwick? I'm sorry, she's not here. Justin Huff?
Yes.
Christopher Jones? Chris Jones?
Yes.
Abigail Ortega?
Yes.
Kelly Ramasini?
Yes.
John Sovek?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker?
Thank you. And I am going to abstain given I wasn't a member at that time, if that would be noted.
That would be noted. Thank you very much. And motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you all. We're moving on to agenda item 12. Excuse me, 11, which is the board chair report. I'm almost skipping myself. For the new board members, this is a time where our board members, including the chair, if there are any announcement to be made around board changes or staff changes, we usually include it here. But it's also an opportunity for our board member to share with the audience if they have participated to any perhaps conference or activities that are BBS related. Of course, we all very active out there. We are all very connected. We're connected with our community. So mostly activities have to do with BBS related or mental health related conferences or activities. So feel free to share. I don't have any particular report at this time. So I leave the word to you in case there are anyone that wants to share.
This is John Sovek. I actually have something I'd love to share, especially because of our conversation yesterday with Dr. Olson. Next week, I'm heading up to Monterey to be speaking with the California School Nurses Association, training them on LGBTQ adolescent care, including specialization in trans care.
Wonderful, John Savek. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Anyone else? In the past, pre-COVID times, when there were a lot of conferences around the state of California, sometimes our board members are called to participate on some of these conferences. All board members bring it up to the attention of the staff to have a BBS presence. Sometimes the chair or any other board member has the opportunity to do so. So it gets really fascinating and interesting to see what's going on in our state and how our BBS members are participating to this process. I know we went silent for a while because of COVID, so we're looking forward to see and resume this agenda item with more activities and presence of ourselves. So thank you for all of you, though, for being so engaged in many other aspects of our work. If there are no other further comments, we'll move. Yes.
Max, this is Kelly. I just wanted to note to the board, over here in Imperial County, we've developed our first mental health diversion program. Mental health diversion is a relatively new law, which is taking some of our clinicians that are BBS affiliated in a new forensic direction. Also, over here in Imperial County, we are dealing with the Family First Prevention and Services Act, which is another area where many of our clinicians are beginning to take on the role of what's called qualified evaluators, or QIs, within the child welfare system. So that's another direction where many of our clinicians are kind of branching off and doing these evaluations, which are associated with child welfare and also associated with the criminal justice system. And so that's kind of interesting. It's a change in the state that's happening very, very rapidly.
Board member Kelly Ranasinghe, these are exactly the kind of news and information that we need to hear. So thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to share that. On that note, anyone else would like to share more? Okay. Oh. Okay, Chris Johns, please go ahead.
So next month I'll be up in Sonoma County at our at the California Association of School Psychologists Spring Institute, where I'll be presenting about how to become an LEP and trying to do some recruitment, if you will. So prep for the test and what it is to be, have the LEP and be in private practice. So it's our first live presentation of this topic since before the pandemic. So we're pretty excited about that.
It really sounds like. Thank you, Chris. And as you can tell, we all had things going on that we do. I think we were all too shy to share it. So, but this is exactly the time and the opportunity, every time we convey together. So thank you again. Looking at the screen, making sure that I'm not missing anyone else. Okay, we're good to go. So we are now moving on the agenda item 12, which is the Department of Consumer Affairs updates. This is the time when the DCA comes to us and pretty much shares any news or any things that are happening. I believe that we have a presentation from our Carrie Holmes, which is part of the DCA executive branch. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Board President Disposti and board members. I'm Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director of Boredom Bureau Relations, Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you so much for allowing me to provide a department update. And welcome to new members Ortega and Walker. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. DCA appreciates all board members and staff who have continued to serve through a pandemic that has affected us all in many ways. California and DCA have continued with health and safety measures to protect employees, consumers, and our communities from the threat of COVID-19. State employees must show proof of vaccination or be subject to regular COVID-19 testing when working on site. As California moves into this endemic reality, the new state public health order will lift universal masking for vaccinated individuals beginning February 16th. Unvaccinated individuals must still wear face coverings in all indoor settings. In some high-risk settings, such as healthcare facilities, face coverings will be required for everyone regardless of vaccination status. Local orders may be more restrictive to respond to community conditions. Please remember that as state representatives, we are all expected to adhere to all state and local orders while carrying out our duties. On January 5th.
Hey, Carrie, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're having a hard time hearing, actually, for some reason. I apologize.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was me, so thank you, Steve. We could hear you, but it was, we had to.
It's very low.
Yeah, it's very low audio. Yeah, thank you, Steve. I don't know if we can fix that.
Real quick and see if it helps.
A little bit better, yes.
Okay, is that a little better?
Yes.
Way better.
Way better.
Okay, so where were we? On January 5th, Governor Newsom signed an executive order that allows boards to meet remotely through March 31st, 2022. I'm happy to let you know that on January 31st, AB 1733 was introduced to permanently allow state bodies to meet remotely, while also requiring both virtual and physical locations for members of the public. If this bill is passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, it would take. We cannot be certain that AB 1733 will be enacted or when. The boards do need to be prepared for the possibility of in-person meetings after March 31st. Before attending any in-person meeting, members must verify full vaccination with DCA's Office of Human Resources or participate in COVID-19 testing. If any members have not yet done so, please submit your proof of vaccination. Your participation will assist DCA in planning for testing at future meetings. I want to express my appreciation for the flexibility of board members, staff, and the public as we have navigated this changing pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Thank you so much. And I do have a question for you. So forgive me if maybe you already spoke to it in the time where we were having a hard time. But is it fair to assume that perhaps in the next board meeting might be in person or?
So, Board President, there is nothing preventing you from having an in-person meeting after the 16th. The Sacramento public order that prohibited in-person meetings is also being lifted. And so the board will likely have a choice. And if that legislation is enacted, you would have the choice to have in-person or remote or a combination of both.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarification so that also our fellow board member can prepare for the possibility that we might come in person. And for those of you that are new, the locations of the board meeting usually differs. I mean, it can be in Sacramento and a location in Northern California, Central California, Southern California. It's been a long time we haven't seen each other. And for some of us, we never met in person. So we're definitely looking forward to see certain, I don't know if we can call it normality, but the pleasure of coming together and being in person. And so hopefully it will be for the May meeting, but our staff will follow up with the rest of the board members to make sure that it's confirmed or not. So thank you again. Thank you. Are there any questions from
Yes, I think she may have more actually. Sorry, Carrie. Do you have more?
Oh my gosh.
I have a few more updates.
Here I am cutting you through. Okay, then.
Okay, thank you. So whether you do meet remotely or in person, DCA does want to keep your board fully seated with excellent members and diverse voices. So for the members who are nearing the end of their terms, if you have not served 2 full terms already, you should reach out to make sure that we know you're interested in reappointment. You may need to fill out a new application on the governor's appointments webpage. And if there will be any upcoming vacancies, there may, board members should also encourage individuals to apply for those appointments. You can do that through board member resources on DCA's homepage or directly at the governor's website. I also wanted to remind board members that you do have training and reporting requirements. Each year, board members are required by law to file a Form 700 disclosure before April 1st, face penalties from the FPB. The DCA requests that board members file as soon as possible, and if anyone needs assistance, DCA's filing officer and legal counsel are available. Also, board members who were recently appointed or reappointed need to attend member orientation training within a year of that appointment date. You can register for BMOT through the Learning Management System, or LMS, which is DCA's training portal. The live virtual trainings will be held March 9th, June 15th, and October 12th. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help, and if there's anything I can do to assist, please reach out. This concludes my presentation, and I'll hand it back over to Board President Dispost.
Thank you. So I should have waited for that, for you to say that. But thanks for being so flexible and answering my question. Are there any other questions from our board members, or comments, or anything in relation to the new measures that are coming forward? Okay, I think perhaps, moderator, we could definitely open to the audience and see if there are any comments or questions from our audience. Thank you so much.
Certainly. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. Instructions are on the screen. If you'd like to make a comment, you can click on the question mark icon at the bottom right of your screen, type the word comment into the text box and hit send, and we will take comments in the order received. If you are on a mobile device, it's behind the 3-dot other options, or you can raise your hand if you're calling in by hitting *3. We do have someone in the meeting as Renee Jeffrey with a hand raised. Renee, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And you're unmuted.
I'm wondering, will there be time at the end for general comments about things not on the agenda? I just wanted to take advantage of the open for public comment option now.
There's a public comment at the very end, and then also suggestion for agenda items for future board meetings. So
okay,
we will have that chance. Yeah,
I'll hang on for that. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. No problem.
Thank you for asking. Anyone else, moderator?
I do not see any other requests for comment, so I will close the public comment feature.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And so back to the board. Any other comments of? Okay, I think we're good to go. I don't see anyone raising their hands. Thank you so much, Ms. Holmes, again, for coming forward and sharing with us the news and the changes. I think now we are ready to move to our agenda item, which is the next agenda item is number 13, and it's the elections of board vice chairperson. Just as a disclosure, because of the departure of our former board member, Christina Wong, due to her term limits, the position of the board of the vice chairperson is now vacant. We need to elect a board vice chairperson that will be able to assist in my absence. And the elected vice chairperson will serve until the next board election, which will be actually in May. So it's a very short-term position. As you know, any election for vice chair not automatically assume that the vice chair will be the chair. This is really entirely up to you about how this process is moved forward. But in May, we will have to re-elect the chair. Elect a new chair and a new vice chair as well. So to perform the election process, we'll need nominations. And once the nominations are made, we will conduct a vote today for our vice chair only. And the nominee with majority of the votes will be the next board vice chair. So the way we do it here for our brand new board members, and it's pretty much the present protocol of public meetings. If there are any nominations, we can submit the nominations, and the nominee can speak to it if they accept or not the nominations, of course. That's important too. And then we can have as many nominations as we wish and get to the vote right after. I'll start. I do have a nomination, and I explain why. Actually, I would like to nominate as a vice chair from here to May. I would like to nominate Chris Jones as a vice chair to support me until the month of May. And the reason these nominations are many, obviously you all know Chris John has been here for a while now, even though most of us are brand new. We do like the alternating a public member with a licensee all the time. It's not a rule, folks, so it's not like the law by any means, but it does help in the conversation because obviously I'm a public member, so I always like to have the expertise of a licensee next to me. many of you, all of you, I would say, are eligible to become a chair or vice chair. So this doesn't exclude anyone else in moving themselves forward. I would say that we have some of our board members that are soon to renew their appointments. Some of you might seek reappointments, some of you might not seek reappointments. So that's always a surprise. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. So I'm looking for some stability in that regards, but that's my nomination. With any other further ado, I can definitely say pass. And I see board member Rene Singhi, they're proposing something else as well. And then I have Crystal Anthony. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, I would nominate Board Member John Sovic as Vice Chair.
Perfect. Let me write this down. I want to make sure that. Thank you. And then we have, go ahead, Crystal Anthony.
And I would like to nominate Kelly.
Okay. So I think perhaps, are there any other nominations? I don't see anyone with their hands raised. Perhaps the process ran out go ahead, Crystal.
Just a quick question. Are we only allowed to nominate one person, or could we just put another person in the hat as well?
Good question. I believe, Steve, can each member nominate more than one person, or?
That's a really good question. I would think that the nominations would stay to one per board member.
Okay.
Honestly, yeah.
Would make sense, yeah, but then I don't know. Thanks for that question, Crystal. So again, we have 3 nominees at the moment. One is Chris Jones, and then we have John Sobek, and then we have also the nominee for Kelly Ranasinghe. And perhaps we can start hearing from the nominee if they even accept the nominations, right? Unless you guys had the opportunity to talk to the individuals, but I'm sure the public would like to know. So I'll start with the first nomination, Chris Jones.
Yes, I do accept the nomination.
Thank you, Chris. And then John Sobek. For some reason, I don't see you on my screen.
I would actually like to withdraw my nomination and support Kelly Ranasinghe.
Okay. And Kelly. Thank you, John.
Thank you. I accept the nomination, and I'm very humbled to be nominated by John and Crystal.
Okay. So, are there any other nominations again? I don't see. And John Sobek, yes. Go ahead.
John Sobek. I'd actually like to nominate Crystal Anthony.
Crystal Anthony. Okay. So let me summarize this, making sure I don't miss anyone else. We had now confirmed, and Crystal Anthony, so your time to tell us how you think about this.
I think it's also my time to renew. So it's a short enough window, so I'll accept it.
I know. I believe your reappointment is done in June. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Right. But that's good. So you're accepting the nomination.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So at this point, we have the nomination for Chris Jones, and then we have Kelly, and then we have Crystal. I believe, I know our legal counsel today is not represented by Sabina, but we have someone else in the room, correct?
Yeah, it's Jason Hurtado is representing legal today.
Wonderful. Hi, Jason. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, that we don't commit any error. So I believe at this point, we vote nomination per nomination? So the board expressed themselves on the vote?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So unless there are any other nominations again, we can go in the order these nominations was submitted for the board. Is that correct?
Fine, that would work.
Okay.
Yes.
So I first moved the nominations for Chris Johns, and I would like to put it to vote so we can start with Chris Johns' nominations. And I have a question, procedural question. So if the majority of people do accept a first nomination, what about the rest of the nomination? Are automatically, they're not going to put to vote, and right?
Mr. Chair, I think we could just simply do a roll call vote, and whichever of the three nominees receives the most votes from the board members, I think that would work as well.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, I like that. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're here. Okay, then we can start with the nominee of our board member, Chris Johns. And
actually, what we'll do is a roll call, and then as we go through the roll call, they'll each board member will say who they were voting for. I think that's what we're going to do.
Oh, that way we do the roll call. Okay, and each one of us express the nomination. Okay, perfect. I need someone to help me with the count, though. Okay.
No, we'll do it. No, Christina will do the roll call, and we will definitely keep the tally for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Give me a second here, because we haven't done it like this before. So let me get set up.
Hi.
I got all the stuff. I'm ready to do the counts here.
Okay, help me do that count.
I will.
This is board member Annette Walker. Just jumping in really quick. Procedure-wise, if you have a motion, doesn't each vote or motion have to have a second before we take the count?
That is also part two. Yeah.
Stuff like that, but we have never had so many nominations on the floor before, so I don't know what the procedure would be. We've always had one nomination, and that was it in the past.
So it's not really a motion then if you don't have a second. This sounds like it's just a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just ask, hi, this is legal counsel. Is there anything kind of spelled out in the board's administrative, procedure manual or anything like that that speaks to this issue?
Not to the actually how we proceed with the vote, but
yeah, I think the election of officers is pretty informal for the most part and can be done through a roll call. So I think it makes it much simpler than a formal motion and a second each time. So it's the board's call on that on how it wants to proceed here.
Thank you, Jason.
I do like, I don't mean to do this in a more complicated way, but I think Dr. Walker made a point because in general, obviously, if we have a presentation and a position, we always would like someone to second so that we know also if there is the support. Maybe that would be the route to go because it's pretty much what we do all the time. Yes, Christina.
Maybe we can just make the motion to accept the nominations on the floor and then someone second on those nominations, and then we go into the vote.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Christina. So we go back to the nominations. So, and for instance, my first nomination, I made a motion to have Chris Johns nominated, right? And then I will need a second. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think what I'm trying to say is encompass all of the nominees in one
the
motion.
nominees together. Okay.
Yes.
So the motions on the table is that Dr. Walker, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to make the second.
Oh, okay.
Since I started it, made it.
I think it's really more of a fair process because, obviously. But anyway, so the nominations on the floor are for, again, board member Chris Johns, and then for board member Kelly Ranasinghe, and then board member Crystal Anthony. Am I correct? So we need a second for those roll calls. And I believe Dr. Walker second already.
Correct. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, so now that we've done this, we can do the roll call.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Crystal Anthony.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Max Discovery.
Board member Chris Johns.
Ross Ehrlich.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Susan Friedman.
Crystal Anthony.
Justin Huth.
Crystal Anthony.
Christopher Jones,
Crystal Anthony.
Abigail Ortega,
Crystal Anthony.
Kelly Ranasinghe,
Crystal Anthony.
John Sovek,
Crystal Anthony.
Andy Strack,
Crystal Anthony.
Dr. Annette Walker,
Crystal Anthony.
and that completes the roll call. And I don't have a count as I was typing it all out.
I do.
You have one?
So, I do. Chris Jones 1, Kelly 2, Crystal at 8. So, looks like we have a vice chair. Crystal Anthony.
Yes. Welcome, Crystal Anthony.
I just want to say, one, I feel really honored. I'm getting teary-eyed because I did it. This is not what I expected this morning. So thank you guys. I'm really appreciative and I feel honored. So thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you for accepting as well. Okay, without any further ado, I believe this concludes this agenda item. Am I correct? We don't have
correct.
Okay. Sure, since we haven't done this before. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for being so active and participating in the voting process. I think we're moving to agenda item 14, which is the executive office report. If nobody needs any break, I think we can go through your report, right, Steve? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. If nobody needs a break, I can start that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. To start out, we have the budget report, and our budget looks pretty healthy. Based on December expenditures, we have expended $4.6 million of our budget for the year. And that is, I think, approximately 40%. I don't have that listed in here in my script, but about 40% of our finances. Personal services accounts for about 19% of that expenditure, operating expenses for 14%, and enforcement 2%, and exams 11%. So our budget does look healthy, and as you can see for the further projections, it looks like our reserves are growing, which is good. So currently we're at around 8-month reserve. So are there any questions about the budget?
Not here.
No? Okay. So then the next thing to go into our licensing report. As of, I don't have the exact date here, but we've had in the last quarter, 4,000 and about 4,000 initial licenses were issued. And that's for the second quarter of 21-22. And as of January 4th, we have 128,464 licensees. And it continually grows at a 1% rate. Historically, we've just seen that 1% rate keeps growing. So, and with that comes with applications. Get those people licensed, we have to process applications. Overall, in the second quarter of the 21-22, we received 12% less applications because we're getting out of our graduation season and such. With that, though, the processing times were still up for the second quarter because we were trying to get through all those applications that we received during those our high volume times of the year. So that's what I say. I can believe that increase in processing times was related to that because most of them were in the registration applications, which are the applications that people after they graduate, we are getting them their registrations. So additionally, kind of to note, LMFTs are actually back to normal processing now. They've gone through all those applications last year, did a great job. So we're back to a normal processing rate. I think it's about 30 to 45 days now to process an application for examination for the LMFT. On the other hand, now we are experiencing a little increase in the LCSW examination applications. And once again, this is a case of due to staff resources. We had a staff member leave and one retire in December. I think it was, both in December. So we're experiencing a little bit backlog there. Just as we had done with LMFT, we have shifted a staff duty to actually assist in that unit, and we are in the process of doing hiring for the vacant positions, and that should be done pretty soon. So, is there any questions up to that point? I guess I can't really see, so I'm sorry.
Not at this point. Steve, perhaps, I don't know how you want to do this. If you want to stop in a portion of your... Right, and then we can go to the audience as well. If there are any questions, usually we do that because there is a lot of information, obviously. Yeah. Should we stop here, or you prefer to find another segment?
How about maybe I can just go through, and if anybody has, then we can just just ask questions at the very end of everything. Maybe that would be easier.
Okay,
if that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, and then the next I'm going to talk about is the exams unit. We processed, or not processed, but 4,588 exams were administered in the second quarter, and you can see the exam statistics for the schools are attached for your review. That report that you're looking at, that school report, we're taking a closer look at it to make sure that the report is actually capturing the data appropriately. There were some nuances that were pointed out to us, and so we're kind of looking at data validation to make sure that those are precise and correct. So hopefully by the next reporting period, we can have assurance that data has been validated further. For the exam development, we had 9 examination development workshops in that quarter. And the exam unit is working with the Office of Professional Examination Services to recruit for licensees that have only been licensed from 0 to 5 years. And it's an effort to kind of get those newer licensees in the workshops to help us design exams and actually diversify the actual pool we have. So they are doing they published advertisement on social media. We do also a push out on the listserv, all the emails for all our licensees to get the applications in. You can apply actually. I hope I'm not steering the wrong way, but if you want to apply, you can go to our website. And there is an application for the subject matter expert for exam development, and you can fill that out. So it looks pretty good. I think so far it started about a month ago, and I think the first few weeks we received about 50 applications, I believe. So it looks good. We're going to continue that effort working with OPES to kind of diversify and increase that subject matter expert pool, because that definitely helps in exam development. As a side note, our exam team got to visit and actually toured a Pearson VUE test site, and it was very favorable. They liked everything that was there. It was nice and clean and professional. So just kind of a little side note. For enforcement, there was a slight increase in consumer complaints this quarter to 443 consumer complaints, and a very slight decrease in criminal convictions, which was 352. Our staff closed 653 cases and referred 11 to the Attorney General. And we're still good on our processing times. Processing times for cases decreased in the last quarter. That's processing times to complete formal discipline. We're at 472 days, and the established DCA performance measure is 540 days. So we're well under that performance goal. I'd like to note that after yesterday's meeting, at the next board meeting, I think this report we will begin to report kind of what we're looking at with petitioner hearings and how many petitioner hearings we have that are scheduled and not. So more further stats, or not stats, but statuses of all our petitions that will be presented at the next board meeting. And next is social media. We've noticed a decrease in social media contacts, especially by licensees and prospective licensees. We're thinking that a lot of this decrease is due to getting through the backlogs of the MFT applications. Additionally, I think it's also for the reason that the waiver for the video supervision have been extended. So I think there's less concerns at this point and less questions. So I think that's why our social media contacts have kind of decreased a little bit in the last quarter. Facebook, notice the report's a little bit different now. Facebook has changed the way that they report the analytical information. So we're providing narrative form here. We're looking to kind of include more data in the next report and kind of redesign that. So provide more information. Just as a note, you can see that we kind of, with the new reporting that they had, it looks like Facebook, our reach was down by 11% last quarter. Our Instagram reach for some reason was up 16%. Facebook, one thing we teased out of the data, and I'm not sure if we'll keep on reporting it, just wanted to show you that the board currently has 19,300 Facebook followers. That we'll still keep track of. But they split it between male and female. So we have 80% reach in female and 11% in male. It's kind of interesting. So, but I'm not sure if we'll continue to report on that. We'll see what the report comes out next time. And the Facebook page has declined. The visits have declined also. Once again, I think it's because there's a lot of the concern over the MFT licensure and the waivers being extended. It's kind of has calmed down a little bit. One last thing to note in our communication report is that we've noticed a decline in phone calls that the CIC, the Consumer Information Center, has been answering for us. And once again, we think some of that decline was due to the LMFT examination apps and the waiver issues. But we also, in January, we transitioned to a new phone system. It's a Microsoft Teams phone system. And so that changed not necessarily the organization of our phone tree, but the way that phone calls were coming in. And what we're thinking is that it might be working better. And actually, more phone calls are being directed to the right spots. In this case, I think a lot of them are being directed to our cashiering unit because we did see, while we saw a decrease in calls to the CIC center, we did see an increase into the cashiering unit. So we're going to look at that just to make sure. But yeah, it's currently, I think we were, on average, CIC was answering anywhere from 70 to 80 calls a day. Now they are doing about 30 calls a day. So it's decreased quite a bit. The nice thing, though, the new Teams, Microsoft Teams phone system that we have, it actually will allow staff to utilize their computers wherever they are to answer phone calls. And additionally, it does provide us with not a translation, but it translates it into a voicemail, a WAV file for us. So it really has offered us some, it's really helped us out. I like it, and I hope staff like it. I think they do. So we no longer really have desk phones, so we're getting rid of those. And then lastly, we have some new employees. I don't know if she's on, but I'm happy to introduce that, or happy to report that Lisa Sigelski has accepted a staff service manager position in our licensing unit. She's our new licensing unit manager. And you might know Lisa. She was involved in the Facebook and social media. She's kind of our social media guru. So, and was doing Facebook Fridays and such. So she's transitioning over to being a manager in licensing. So we're happy for that. And then we also have Lisa Santolin as a new analyst in our discipline and probation unit. Lisa's been with us for maybe about a year or more. And she was an office technician, really good at working with our cite and fine area and coordinating that. So now she had promoted to an analyst position. So it's a really big promotion for her, and we're happy to have her. And lastly, we have a Paul Drabkin who is currently in our cashiering unit, was promoted from an office technician to a management service technician. And so Paul will actually be working on ASW registrations. So now we have kind of a couple more people, that's adding one more person to the registration application review process, which is great. And Paul's been really handy and really has been really great in cashiering. Sad to lose him in there, but happy to have him in the registration team. We do have a retirement, Alicia Day. She was a cashier for us for approximately 4 years, has decided to retire, to move on to be with her family. And she'll be moving across the way to West Virginia to hang out with her family. So that's happy for her. Sad to see her go. She was always so helpful and cashiered a lot of applications over the years. So thank you, Alicia. And she's going to be retiring June 30th will be her last day. Let me take a breath here. So currently, we do have 11 vacancies. It's a lot of vacancies, and there's been a lot of work. And honestly, with the 11 vacancies, we are in the process. Most of those are in the process of doing final offers to the people. So I mean, we're really close on most of those. And but we have been promoting within quite a few times, so that creates additional vacancies. So our personnel person, Lori Williams, who processes these, has been completely busy for the last few weeks with interviews and such. So we are currently searching for a staff service manager to replace Marlon in the consumer complaint unit. We have an AGPA in the admin unit, and that's a new position that we created just recently to kind of work on licensing processes and statistics and and cross-training and kind of head off the effort to cross-train everybody in licensing so we can actually, not be impacted so much by staff vacancies when it comes to processing. We have a staff service analyst that we need to hire in the criminal conviction unit, a staff service analyst in the licensing unit, and that's for the social work desk. And we should be, actually, I think I can report that now. That is Sasha Addison, who'd been working as an evaluator, is now going to be taking that position. So we're happy to see that. She has the experience and the knowledge to take over and kind of be a lead in that unit. And I'll just leave the rest. We have an MST. We have 2 vacancies in licensees. We're about to fill an office technician in the admin unit. And that's really going to be looking at working on kind of just, not kind of just, but working with the front desk and some of our more administrative duties. In the background, we have an office technician we have to hire in our discipline and probation unit to refill behind Lisa Santolin, and 2 OTs in the registration and examination unit, one to fill a cashier position, and then another one for the, no, actually it's 2 for cashier, sorry, 2 for cashier, so. Ran through that. Hopefully there's a lot of questions, or maybe not, but please let me know.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Steve, I was thinking about, obviously we all have the reports because it's, public and we have the time to read it and go through. Definitely, it's a lot to digest. I do have a question. When you were talking about social media, I noticed the decrease of interaction. I also know that the person, our BBS Fridays on Facebook were a huge hit for a long time, especially during COVID, a great strategies that paid off in so many ways. But I know that the person, forgive me, I forgot her name.
Lisa,
that she changed, right? She's promoted, she's been promoted, so she's not in charge of that. And do you think it's something that we are strategizing to maybe with a new staff member, another staff member, to continue to have that communication, or is something that's with COVID is going to go away? Do we have the resources to, yeah?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not letting that one go. Okay. No, we are definitely going to capitalize on that. And yeah, we're trying to transition Lisa out of that position because she is definitely, it's kind of like one of those, in a lot of our hiring, if somebody promotes within, we've had to, because of the resources, kind of, they've assisted, that position in as much as they can, but we want to get them in, like with Lisa, she's going to have a lot to do, or she has a lot to do with the licensing unit. So what we do is we really do want to hire that, find an AGPA that has an analyst to refill behind her that kind of has that experience or may have that knowledge of kind of social media or, customer service. Right. Additionally, with the new AGPA and the licensing unit, that position also will kind of assist, because what we really want to do is expand. We want to see what's in licensing. We have somebody in there that really understands what needs to be communicated. And so what we're looking at is having that AGPA kind of assist the social media campaign person to kind of carry that on. And we really do want to expand that to not just be one face. We're talking about, having different evaluators, maybe different topics, kind of like formalizing that a little bit more. So.
Right. No, I was wondering if that, thank you, Steve. I was wondering if that, I'm sure has impacted also the lower rates on interactions, because Lisa was so good on making sure that, addressing different topics that people were asking questions to. Definitely, for those of you on the board that haven't experienced that or they don't know what we're talking about, this was a once a week moment where the BBS was going pretty much live on Facebook through the BBS site. And in this case, Lisa, our staff member, was answering all those questions had to do with different topics of, renewing licensing or whatever that was the issues. So you need someone, obviously, that they know those answers, right? It's not just about managing the social media and click on the likes. We need someone that has the expertise to answer properly or to refer properly when people had questions that she couldn't answer, which it didn't happen so often, So yeah, I hope we can look, because I know it's not easy, but we can make sure to expedite that change, and the replacement, because sometimes people complain to us, as the fact that we might not be so accessible, over the phone or over the website. That really helped through a lot of the calls and a lot of the support. So I just want to comment that part.
Oh, and additionally too, I mean, what we're actually starting with the new strategic plan coming out, really looking at, we're going to really definitely have an outreach team within the board where we're going to meet with the staff, to really strategize and to really get into how we can increase that reach. Because it's been very helpful. I mean, Lisa had gotten in there before. We never really paid much attention to social media. It was kind of scary as an agency to kind of go into that, a government agency. But it's really tripled our reach from what we had before. So we want to keep rolling on that and keep it going. So
definitely. It was, I remember years ago was one of our goals in our strategic plan, which we didn't have any social media outreach, and that, in a few years that has changed tremendously. Okay, thank you for answering that. I don't want to take too much time on this. Are any board members, for those of you who are new, really, I encourage you to ask any questions. Nothing is redundant. It's always an opportunity for the audience to hear and to go in depth if necessary. So I'll leave it up to you if there are any questions, comments for Steve before we go to the public.
Hi, Steve. This is Justin, LMF team member. Thanks for the comprehensive information. I have a question about the exam pass rates. It looks like there's a pretty significant drop between first quarter and second quarter in LMFT law and ethics, 83% to 70%. That seems notable to me. When I looked through the individual universities. I wasn't seeing any specific universities or clumps that were leading that trend. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to why there might have been that notable drop in first-time pass rates.
I wish I could speak more to that. We do see that kind of fluctuation between quarters. It's not a very uncommon fluctuation. Why that is, I don't want to conjecture right now. I'm sorry. We can reach out to OPES because they might be able to give us more clarification on kind of why we see those. It's a good question though. So.
And I have a quick follow-up question, if that's okay. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. How low does this first time or repeat pass rate have to be before there are subsequent audits of the exams?
We don't really have a general, I don't believe, and once again, OPES might have they monitor this on a continual basis. And all the exams are monitored on a continual basis, the performance and such. And they will, if they see a concern of the pass rates, they will reach out to us. I think at one point, it's kind of a concern if there's too high of a pass rate too. I mean, we kind of 85, I kind of look at that as a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's good that we're getting 85% pass rate. I think before what we did experience a couple of years ago where we had a 50 to 60% pass rate. And that was really concerning. And that was when we really were taking a look at what the heck was going on. So definitely what I can do is reach out to OPES to kind of see what we can say on how they really look at that. But just just to let everyone else know, or let you know too, is that yes, on a continual basis, the performance of each exam is being looked at, continually. So, and also like per question too, they look at not just, the overall, but looking at performance of actual question responses and such. So
great. Thanks, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, if I may actually, even because obviously Justin brought a good point, maybe to give the past experience of the board in terms what we have done when we've seen these trends going up and down. There's been extensive conversations and concerns, right? We brought our partners to the table several times where they share with the board how the exam works and what are the trends and why this is happening and that happening. There was a point we even changed our partners. They did examinations. We've seen anything between 75%, 80%, 72%, and it goes really up and then goes really down. And it's like they would say it's kind of cycle, and the elements could be, vary. And definitely, I appreciate your question because there is a point where we need to be concerned, right? From my standpoint of view of what I've seen in the past, at least 6-7 years, it's totally within the range of what we have seen in the past years. That's all I can say. I don't want to speak to more than that because.
And what I can offer, I don't want to offer them up without. I can talk to OPS, but they're all more than willing to come and talk. And I know that the last time they kind of gave a review it's a while ago, and I think many of you have not been able to hear the presentation they give. So maybe we can call them up to a board meeting to kind of talk to you about the pass rates and such. So
I think I like that, Steve. That would be a great idea. I think the whole board pretty much might have not experienced that presentation, which was 3 years ago, pre-COVID.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I think that would be good. That would be good.
I see John Savek with his hands up.
Hey, Steve, this is John Sovek.
Hi.
I have a question for you about the Pearson View site visit.
Mm-hmm.
First question, was it invitation by them? Did they know you were coming?
Yeah, that we have to coordinate because it's a secure environment, so they just don't drop bys. Yes, they did know.
Okay. And were there any persons with disabilities with you who were able to really get a feel of accessibility issues?
I would probably say no.
Okay. Because that is one thing, especially during COVID, with people having to drive distances to certain sites that only provided accessibility stuff, that I think on any visit, we should find a way, someone with some expertise or lived experience to be able to kind of keep an eye out for accessibility issues.
Okay.
And even in the report that you said, you guys did not go into any secure areas. So once again, I would just be curious as to how authentic to a license taker's experience your trip was.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
is that potentially something to examine, that occasionally you do have people from staff visiting to just look at conditions at our testing sites?
I mean, I'm not going to say no, but the time involved, there's approximately 100 and something different sites in California, I think, alone. And the Pearson View does have to follow, I mean, the guidelines for accessibility and stuff. What I can do maybe is look at that and see kind of what they have. But yeah, I mean, there's always a chance we could actually go into the sites. But having us determine accessibility, I don't know if I'd prefer staff to do that. It would probably be a professional, you know, but yeah.
And maybe keep eyes open for that, because in the strategic plan surveys that came back, there were a lot of curiosities about testing accessibility. So I just think we always need to keep that in our eyesight as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that might be something, I mean, to start it out with looking at what they have to comply with and what they do for each site, and then we can see from there, make a plan at looking at, you know, do we want to do audits or something? So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, I'm just having a technical problem because I can hear, but I can't. My computer web completely black, so I don't know why. So I don't see anything on the screen. So I'm having a moment here. If you give me a second, hopefully I can resume. I don't know why this is happening.
I can look to see if there's any other questions.
Thank you. In the meantime, if you don't mind, yeah. In the meantime, I'm trying to fix this problem. I will appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
We can see you, Max.
Yeah,
I guess my computer though is not. It's dark. I don't know why. Okay. Yes, David. Okay. There was a.
I got it.
A little panic. Yes. Thank you. Okay. And so any other questions? I believe we have Ms. Ortega. And
I'm just curious because I'm looking at the website. There are a lot of open positions, and just to get the word out, right? If anyone fits those, right, is looking for the same type of position, like are those positions listed on the website?
We don't list them on our website. They're listed in the statewide CalSearch. So anybody in the state, and then DCA has a link to them, and I believe we might have a link to that too in our website on that. But you would go in. I mean, it's available on CalSearch, which is the statewide employment job posting location.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because it's a lot of positions to fill, so, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We can also support in that. Okay, thank you.
And luckily we don't. Luckily, for most positions, we're not seeing. We get enough applications, so we're not. It's kind of nice. And I think most it averages from 20 to 40 applications per position. So we do get quite a few responses. So.
Okay, great.
Steve, I believe I've seen it on the website before. I just wanted to comment that. And also, yeah, and I know there is, it's a long process. Unfortunately, sometimes when we have this position opens, even by the time you hire someone and then had to do the proper training before they get into the job, it could take few months before people are situated, so to speak. So sometimes it is troubling, right? Because obviously yeah.
And that's one of the processes too we're looking at with the cross training, not only, but we're also looking at working with the Organizational Improvement Office from DCA to really look how we can make these, procedures standardized, easier to be able to. I basically want to be able to hand a manual to somebody brand new and they could follow step by step to get through the process.
Correct.
Instead of right now, we really have to do a lot of training. I mean, there's still a lot of nuances with the licensing evaluation, which is really hard to put down in a procedural type basis, but hopefully we'll get there so we can have that nice, really, kind of cut down on the training time, basically.
Right. Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions? And we are going to the audience, but we are coming back to the board. So it's not like your last chance by any means. So if you're stimulated by any questions out there, we can definitely come back to you. Is that okay? Good. Okay, moderator, if you can help us to go to the audience.
Certainly. This is the moderator. If you have a comment or question about the executive officer report, you can use the Q&A feature in WebEx. You'd click on the Q&A icon at the bottom right corner of your screen, or if you're in a mobile device, it's behind the 3-dot other options. Type the word comment and send. Each commenter will get 2 minutes to speak. If you are on a dial-up connection, you can hit *3 to raise your hand. And we do have a question request from Ben Caldwell. Ben, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Morning, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. I really appreciate, I'm Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT. Really appreciate Mr. Huft's good questions about the law and ethics exam pass rate. Steve, as you noted, back in 2017, there was a significant drop in the pass rate for the MFT clinical exam, and we never really got a good explanation for why that was. At the time, OPES came in and kind of shrugged it off and said, well, it must be the examinees, and then data kind of went back to normal gradually over time. But it would be helpful to know if there was anything ever identified as kind of what happened there that could be shared publicly. It's also worth asking, I think this is a good question for OPES, about the basis for testing. It's not really supposed to be graded on a curve. It's theoretically a criterion referenced test where the criterion is safety for independent practice or minimal competency for independent practice. And if that's the case, then there shouldn't necessarily be such thing as a concerningly high pass rate. Hopefully, that would just mean that supervisors and graduate programs are doing a really good job of preparing people for the test as they're supposed to do. But it would be, the point of all this is just that it would be good to hear from OPES again on these questions, to familiarize new board members with the process and to have an opportunity to talk a little more with them about sort of the theory versus practice of how a passing score is determined and how they look at pass rates. So if it would be possible to invite them back for a discussion, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
And our next request from comment is from Lisa C. Lisa, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes. And you're unmuted.
Recently promoted licensing manager, and I just wanted to thank you all for the kind words about Facebook. I was happy to head that up, and I look forward to training somebody new to take that on. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
And I do not see any other requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you. At this point, yes. And we are back to the board. Please let me know if there is anything else you would like to ask Steve, or any additional comments that came to mind. Otherwise, we can actually That was the conclusion of the report, right, Steve? Okay, I just want to be sure. I don't mess
Sorry,
this up.
got nothing more. I don't know. If you want me to talk more, I can.
I mean, I look at the report. It looks like you touch everything, but I just want to make sure it's my day today, so to make boo-boos. So anyway, okay. Any last call for my fellow board members if there are any other questions or comments? Okay, it looks like that will actually conclude our agenda item for our EO report. Perhaps we can take 10 minutes break before we go to the next agenda item, if you all will enjoy that. So it's 10:21. Let's do a little bit more than 10 minutes. Actually, it's 15 minutes. That give us some time to stretch. At 10:35, we can resume our work. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for our audience as well. Just giving time for everyone to reconnect. These little breaks is like vacation time. They go fast. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. Back to the Board of Behavioral Sciences, our public portion of the meeting. It's 10:36 a.m. and we are resuming our Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Max Disposi. I'm the board chair. My pronouns are him. And we concluded the agenda item 14 with our executive officer report. And we're now moving into the strategic plan updates, which is our item 15. Thank you, moderator, for putting the right slides up. So in our strategic plan update, actually, our Steve, executive officer, will provide an update, and then we will open to the comments to the board and to our audience. Are you there, Steve?
I am here.
I should have asked you first, Tom.
No, that's fine. I'm always here. So
I know you are.
Okay. Great. So strategic plan update. We've finally gone through at the last November 2021 meeting, we voted to move forward with the draft version of the strategic plan and asked the board asked the staff to actually finalize that to get it ready for publication. So what you have in the meeting materials, it is the actual strategic plan in its final form. So we worked with the Office of Publications with DCA, and they, as you can see, they kind of doctored it up to make it look nice and pretty. They did an excellent job, so I thank them. Additionally, while we were working on finalizing that for publication to making it look nice, we have been working, board staff, management had been working with Solid Planning Solutions to develop kind of more specific tasks for each of those strategic plans, and we continue to work on that plan. So that we know internally here what we need to do to get the job done and to reach the.
Okay, I think we lost it for a moment. Let's give him time to come back.
Sorry, can you hear me still?
No, Steve, we lost you. Now we hear you, but we lost you. You were just in the middle of your.
Let me see here. Here we go. Sorry, here. I don't know what. Coming back online. Well, if you can hear me, I'll keep.
We don't see you. Okay.
There we go. Sorry about that. So yes, we were working with Solid to identify like major tasks and kind of assigning out those jobs to different staff members. So we're continually to work on that. Basically, what we're doing internally is kind of structuring teams around those each strategic plan kind of objectives or goals, and utilizing meetings within the board here to kind of look at how do we actually get that work done for you. What we will be doing at the next board meeting is presenting our first status kind of updates. And so we're working on designing something so that we can present to the board on every meeting of how we are working towards reaching our goals in that strategic plan. So before you have the finalized BBS, Behavioral Sciences Strategic Plan for 2022 to 2026. Sorry there. This is for your review, and basically I'm asking the board if it's okay to proceed on and actually publish this out for everyone to see. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve. Let me see. Are there any questions, comments, observations, sentiments? Okay, Wendy Schrax, thank you.
I just want to thank DCA and Steve and all of the BBS staff who guided us through this process. It was a really intensive set of discussions, and just really appreciate how all of us were able to come together and really develop what is a really great strategic direction for the board in the coming year. I think it reflects a lot of the values that this board brings to the table and things that are important to us, including expanding diversity of the profession and really understanding where we are at this point in time with respect to, I think Susan brought it up yesterday with the mental health crisis that we're really facing and what we can do as a board to help bring those resources to more communities and more people, and have a workforce and a group of therapists that reflects the communities that we all serve. So I just want to thank colleagues and staff and DCA staff for really getting us to this point. Thank you.
Oh my God, Wendy, yes, thank you. I second that all the way. I think I'm also really grateful to see the work that went into it. As for every strategic planning in the past years, I witnessed it became more and more community effort. I think this one, Steve, I think last time report you were sharing with us how many people actually participated to the strategic plan, the audience, our partnerships with the other, community members, board. So it's been really an incredible outcome. And let's remember also it's a living document, right? As we go through these next years, the strategic plans will guide us, but also will give us an opportunity to check balances and make sure that perhaps what we selected was the right fit for our growth. And it's definitely an opportunity for us to always have it there present with us as we continue our conversation in the next few years. Let me see if there is any of you that is willing to share. I want to make sure I don't miss you. Not at the moment.
Board member Annette has her hand up.
Oh, thank you so much, moderator. I didn't see that. Yes.
Thank you. Well, yeah, you should be surprised. I'm a new member, so I wasn't privy to all the work that was put into this. So I appreciate the comments that have come thus far, particularly from board member Strack. I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I appreciate what you said. I just can only make assumptions that you all took the time and gave this piece of work due diligence. So I want to give you my comments from a lens of new eyes, fresh eyes for someone that wasn't involved in the process, but now I'm looking at it. It's very visually appealing. I've seen a lot of strategic plans, and this may be one of the best that I've seen. It's very streamlined and focused. And obviously I would abstain from voting on it, but you have my support because I can, it's just, it looks really good. And I'm sure the content speaks to that as well. So good work to the team on completing the strategic plan. Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank everyone for the hard work. Thank you.
Dr. Walker, thank you for saying that, because we always made a point to share that a good, visually good also strategic plan invites people in, right? I work for a nonprofit and sometimes I see things out there I don't even want to read just because they are not approachable. So creating the opportunity to make it visually, to reduce those barriers of accessibility, even in a visual experience, I think is really 60% of the work. Of course, the content has value, but making sure that it's accessible to our members and our licensee, they can actually look into it. To me personally, that's really a great opportunity for us. And I'm glad you noticed that. So thank you, Dr. Walker, for saying that. I believe we have Ms. Ortega, right? Yes. I'm not sure if there is an audio problem. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I put my hand down instead of unmuting myself. Yes, totally enrolled in like the upcoming year, and you know the why as to why I'm here, right? Like visually pleasing, and just I see the commitment shine through this plan. And I did have a question about goal number 3, enforcement, and it's something that also showed up for me, when I went to bed after our meeting yesterday. And like when it comes to like enforcing, right, with people that have broken, right, one of the agreements that we have, I'm wondering, like, how are we measuring like the effectiveness of whatever we're creating to enforce? I don't know if there's been a presentation on that, or like what that looks like, but I would want to know, right, like how long is an effective, right, probation period, like, so that we can measure that this is equitable and that it's fair, and that we're not just kind of like creating numbers. So yeah, that's one thing that I am not seeing like in that goal, is like measures.
And actually, that's part of the staff, the administration portion on the back end here. And one of the, and most of these, what we've talked about, looking at trying to implement these, what we do as the staff is, how are we going to do that? And then what we'll do is give status reports on this. And for a lot of these, especially with those in the enforcement, we really do have to sit down to see how are we, that's the first thing, is how are we going to measure these? Really in any kind of strategic plan, is how are we going to know we got to where we're trying to get to? So, I mean, that's one of our first objectives, especially with a lot of these, is how are we going to measure it? Where are we now? But what we would do is report to you at future board meetings, like what we're doing at that time for that particular one. So we'll keep you updated on that. So, but yeah, definitely there is. It's kind of, some of these are really going to have to think about how we can actually monitor our progress. That is our goal. So, and that's the starting point, though, is to figure out where we are now and where do we want to get to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. And then we have Crystal Anthony, I believe, next.
I was just going to share, just for some of the newer board members and maybe just for the public, this was like an entire process. Every board member had to answer certain questions, turn them in, and then every board member was interviewed. My interview took longer, I think, than it was supposed to. It was like, because chatty Kathy over here, me. But, and everybody had like in-depth answers. And then as a board, we got together more than once to then review and go over the actual street, like to then like pick out the ones that didn't make sense, the ones that do make sense. And then we get questioned too. It's kind of like, well, how are you going to measure that? Or how are you going to do this? And it's like, it's a very long collaborative process. And so I do want to thank Steve and his team of people that kept us all organized to create this. And it is visually beautiful. So good job, team.
I would love to take the credit for most of that, but honestly, I'm going to have to say Solid and Publications DCA does a really good job. The board members and stuff, like you said, there was a lot of participation, not only of the board members, I think you brought up, but we do the environmental scan, which we had a lot of stakeholders. I mean, it was very good reception to a lot of good input. So thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks again, and thank you, Crystal, for summarizing that, and for the public and for the board members that weren't there. Thank you so much, John Sobek.
So, Steve, I hear your humbleness in this, and I also want to publicly recognize you for helping us as a board to go through a huge amount of raw data that came at us, which was then formatted by DCA and Solid, which helped us to put stuff together. But I also really want to recognize your personal effort in helping us to hone this down to language that would be actionable and doable. So thank you for your humbleness, and I publicly recognize you for all of the work you did to bring this plan together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We share that sentiment for sure. There was a lot of work involved and a lot of leadership needed to be put in place in order to make this happen. So thank you for saying that. I second. Anyone else? We can go to the public and then come back in case there are any other thoughts and that you would like to share. So moderator, if you can please help us to open to the public. Thank you.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you would like to make a comment on the strategic plan and progress on it, you can open up the question mark inside a box icon, and in the text box, type the word comment and hit send. If you're on a mobile device, the Q&A is behind the 3-dot other options. And if you're calling in, you can hit *3 to raise your hand. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to speak. And Rebecca Gonzalez would like to make a comment. Rebecca, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and then you will have 2 minutes.
Morning, Rebecca Gonzalez with the National Association of Social Workers California chapter. I want to second or third the comment about how beautiful this document looks. And I also, want to comment that I appreciate the parts, well, all parts of the plan, but parts of the plan that really talk about the importance of diversity and, culturally appropriate services. And I also appreciate the focus on rehabilitation efforts as being something we should look at in the enforcement process. But also in general, just the comments or the goals in the first part on licensing are so important with decreasing processing times, because we really do have a behavioral health crisis in our workforce, and we need to get people licensed and helping others as soon as possible. But thank you so much for all your hard work on this.
Likewise, Rebecca Gonzalez, thank you for you being part of this process as well. So thank you. Okay, do we have any more, moderator?
I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back to the board. And are any other additional questions? Steve, obviously this for you too, in case you would like to add anything else, you can speak at any time as well. Right?
I think, I've got nothing else other than, now the hard work begins. So, continues actually. Did the hard work. So, yeah.
Truly. I think it's nice to make an habit always, it's kind of like having our strategic planning always on our desk, so to speak, especially when we convene or we prepare for public conversations and policy making, because that's really should be our guidance, guiding principles. And not that we never done that, but it's always good to never close this conversation now at the agenda item of strategic plan, right? We always have the opportunity to bring these things up and make sure that we make them work. Without any further ado, unless there are any other comments, I would like to make a motion to approve the, how would that be worded, Steve, in terms of
I would say I make a motion to ask or to direct staff to publish the BBS strategic plan.
Wonderful. So I would like to take the honor to make that motion, and anyone that would like to second that.
I'd like to second it.
Okay. Did I hear Wendy Shack, right?
Yes, that's me. Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm just at my screen. I go back and forth.
And Board Member Sovek had his hand up?
Nope, not at the moment. So thank you, though. And okay, then at this point, we have a motion made by me for the approval of the strategic plan for 2020 for the publication of the same. And we have a second from Board Member Wendy Schreck. And then, Christina, if you can please roll call the vote.
Crystal Anthony?
Yes.
Max?
Yes.
Is there a motion on the floor? Do we not need to open up to public comment again? We didn't have a motion in the previous discussion.
That is correct. We do need to open.
Sorry. Yeah, I was sleeping on that.
No, I should say sorry. Steve, don't take responsibility when that's I'm the one that missed that. Thank you so much, John. And rightfully so, when we make a motion, obviously, we ask again to our board members if there are any comments, but we also go to the public to see if there are any additional comments in regards to the motion on the floor. So, moderator, if you can please take us to the audience, that would be great. And thank you.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up again the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you have any comment on the motion on the floor, you can look on the Q&A icon, which is a question mark inside a square, and hit comment. And Jennifer Alley would like to comment. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Jennifer Alley with CAMFT. I would just like to echo Ms. Gonzalez's comments earlier and support the efforts in enforcement, expediting the licensure process, streamlining it. It's just a really good, thoughtful process that the board's been under for, I think, the last 6 months. So we support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the comment feature?
Thank you, moderator. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're back here again. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. So now, again, we have a motion on the floor that I submitted with a second from board member Wendy Schreck. And are there any comments before we call the vote? Okay, seems to be good. And then again, Christina, thank you. And if we can resume the vote, that would be great.
I'm going to start over.
Yes.
Crystal Anthony?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Ross Ehrlich?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Justin Huff?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Abigail Ortega?
Yes.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Sovek?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker?
I'm going to opt to abstain because I was not involved in the process. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you all for the vote. And I believe that concludes our agenda item for 15. And we're moving now to the agenda item 16, which is the report of our Telehealth Committee. We have an update. I believe the update also is done by Roseanne, right? Roseanne, we have you with us? Yeah, now I can see you.
Good to see you.
Roseanne Helps will report from the Telehealth Committee updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Max. So the Telehealth Committee is moving along and making some progress on the subject of telehealth. The committee held its latest meeting a couple weeks ago on January 28th, 2022. And so the purpose of the Telehealth Committee was established as a special standing committee to determine if any of the board statutes and regulations related to the practice of telehealth by board licensees and registrants need to be updated or clarified. We obviously have a lot of changes in the profession due to COVID-19 state of emergency, and so the committee is trying to best figure out what issues need to be addressed and discussed related to telehealth moving forward. During the last meeting, the committee members and stakeholders discussed allowable telehealth locations for pre-licensees. And so the committee at that time directed staff to begin drafting a guidance document regarding acceptable telehealth settings for pre-licensees. So we're getting to work on that. And we're also, the committee also directed staff to draft some certain additional clarifications in the statutes and regulations. So we're in the process of putting all that together, and we'll be reviewing that at the next telehealth committee meeting, which is set for March 4th. Some of the proposed amendments that were previously developed by the Telehealth Committee are now moving forward as proposed legislation in AB 1758 and 1759, authored by Assemblymember Abigail Carrie. And we'll talk about those a little bit later today, but they address supervision via video conferencing and allowing that in all settings, also requiring applicants and current licensees to complete 3 hours of continuing education in the subject of telehealth and law and ethics related to telehealth as a one-time requirement. And I'm just making a few other clarifications in law regarding who can provide services to clients via telehealth. So I don't know that really any motion is needed, but I'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. There is a lot of attention to this committee because obviously of the times that we're going through. So we receive a lot of inquiries from our public in regards to what's going to happen in the next few months. And so this is also an invitation for those that are listening today, the audience and our partners, is to really, the committees are open to the public. So we really, really encourage your participation. This is not just a formal request. We send out surveys and so forth as well, but the more the merrier. So because there is a lot at stake, right? There is a lot of that's changing. So we want to make sure that we represent that change with the people that are affected by the same. I see Crystal Anthony. Go ahead. Thank you, Crystal.
I just had like a quick comment and maybe just something for a telehealth committee to look at or discuss at their next meeting. And I'm sure it's already actually been brought up because it's like the thing that gets brought up by a lot of therapists, but it's providing telehealth therapy to out-of-state people, especially under the state of emergency when students or college students get primary therapy, maybe done through the university or school they're attending, and then they have to go out of state for a month or two because something gets extended where they're not on site yet, or and how that impacts them. When I think about that, I think about continuity of care. Most people wouldn't say, let's go get a new therapist for 2 weeks and then then go back to your old one. It's just the continuity of care issue there, best practices, and my concern for therapists and getting their patients and clients proper services, especially when they're not in this specific region or area. So that was it.
Thank you, Crystal. That's a very good point. I think in a concern of many, I think what we heard so far, so I don't speak for the committee whatsoever, I'm not part of it, but is that definitely that was one of the primary concern. And it looks like they're directing towards like, okay, unless there is a permanent change, if someone is really moving back to their state of origin or whatever, it takes a longer term change, then obviously shouldn't be affecting too much. But hopefully, I feel the same way. I see Kelly Ranasinghe that is actually has the hands raised. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Honor Chair. And I just want to underscore, I'm one of the peer members of the board, and in the past I've mentioned the need for exigency related to telehealth regulations, and I'm going to reiterate it here again. We are seeing a mass amount of advertisements from therapists and not therapists and facilitators and life coaches on online and social media platforms, particularly from platforms that are capitalizing on the use of Black and brown faces and specifically targeting toward vulnerable populations that have not had access to mental health. just today, I was looking at a platform that popped up on my social media where they were conducting, quote, mental health facilitation groups inside an online gaming platform, completely, not asking for insurance, without licensure. That is something that really needs to be addressed by the Telehealth Committee. It's dangerous. It has the propensity to really hurt people. And it's something that the Board of Behavioral Sciences has the power to issue cease and desist orders on. So again, I would encourage the Telehealth Committee to engage in exigency with regard to their potential for regulation.
Thank you, Kelly, for bringing this up as well. Do I see any other board member? Susan Friedman, thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, in regards to what Kelly just mentioned, this is something that we are aware of. We've even talked about it, but we haven't focused on it yet. And I think that we do need some direction from legal to know how exactly we will focus on this, because, I mean, Kelly said we have the ability to do cease and desist, but I mean, obviously that would require a lot of legal work. So I think that probably before our next meeting, Roseanne, that we should probably get some kind of input from the staff about what our responsibilities or what things we are allowed to do, and what other kinds of people we need to reach out to do what we think needs to be done.
Yeah, that's a good point, Susan. We can issue citations for unlicensed practice. We regulate therapists directly. So we can issue if we get a complaint that somebody is practicing without a license, we are able to investigate it and determine if there is enough evidence to proceed with a unlicensed practice citation. And it is on the agenda of the Telehealth Committee upcoming to look at these do a thorough examination of these types of businesses that are popping up and discuss the board's role in regulating them.
Well, but we would have to have, in order to do if you said somebody unlicensed or some group unlicensed is practicing, we would have to have a complaint. Is that correct? Or can we initiate an investigation without a complaint?
Well, I mean, so first of all, yeah, the way we kind of operate out, yes, we would have to have a complaint, but we do have the authority to go out. I mean, we could, investigate things if we wanted to. Honestly, with the time, we don't really have the resources. I mean, we could, if the board had, and this is something this is what we definitely want to talk about in this committee is, does the board want to allocate resources or utilize, I guess we would Department of Investigation to get involved in this. And what we're looking at though, too, that's kind of the question is we have to think about. I mean, we don't necessarily have authority, I don't believe, over the platforms, the corporations, the businesses themselves. We do have authority over the licensees practicing in California. So that's the things that we have to talk about. And you're right, it might start with kind of looking at legal just to see, just to confirm that we have legal authority to, cite and fine practitioners, but do we have any legal authority for like a corporation that's practicing as a therapy group or something, not a corporation, but a online platform? Do we have any authority to, sanction them or go after them? I don't know. So those are the things we definitely are going to be looking at.
We may want to get some ideas from the Bar Association, because obviously they went through the same thing when Clear started advertising.
And I can tell you that nationally, in some of the conversations I've been listening to, is really everyone's kind of regulators are just kind of scratching their head and trying to figure out how to look at these online platforms. I mean, are they operating, my big concern is that our licensees are, signing up with them and not really recognizing they could be putting themselves in jeopardy because they might be, who knows how they connect with a therapy client. I don't know if they're, talking to making sure that these clients are in another state or in California. Same thing with us, is I don't know how many people out there are, utilizing these platforms, which I think they are a great service. And it definitely is something that I think offers, that access we want, but to make sure that it's done with quality and customer care, how do we do that? That's kind of the questions big questions we'll have to tackle at the meeting. So.
Well, I think there's no doubt that we have to do an investigation. And so we should probably know ahead of time what would be involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
I will, and Susan, I'm saying that also, well, obviously this conversation is really healthy for us to have even in this setting. I think the licensing, the telehealth committee, we have appointee, but everyone is welcome to participate and express their opinions, even though you don't get to vote. So I really, again, encourage you to do that, because there is a lot of aspects of this that will going to be addressed. And I also share with board member Kelly Renasinghe the concerns about these platforms. I personally met a lot of people that actually were challenged by the level of lack of services, even though they're extremely costly too. So it's something that we can definitely address and see together also in the telehealth committee. Are there any other comments or questions? Or Ms. Ortega, hi.
I don't know if this has been discussed in the past, so please let me know.
Okay.
I see that there's like a 3-hour training. I'm not sure what's in that training. I know during the pandemic, there were 2-day-long trainings on telehealth, right? And there's a lot of information in those trainings. So just curious what the breakdown is and what's considered most important. And then one thing that I would love to have inside of that is best practices for therapists to, for example, know when to refer a patient from telehealth to in person, right? I know that it's not as it's not easy, but I've had children that were doing very poorly via telehealth, and had a conversation with the parent about in person in their neighborhood, really looked for someone, and then the child was a different person in person. Same as what we see, right? Virtual schooling versus when the kids are in the classroom. So instead of sometimes a lot of kids being diagnosed pretty more harshly because of how they are being on a video platform versus in person. So and that's something that has come up a lot, that sometimes therapists will hold on to certain patients via telehealth, and we need to know sometimes when to refer to in person, and I would like that to also be part of the coursework. Does that land?
Yeah, no, thank you, actually. Thank you so much. I don't know if, Roseanne, you want to speak to it a little bit, or maybe Steve, about the coursework specifically?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So when we had the discussion about the 3-hour telehealth training course, it's kind of the board, because a lot of practitioners didn't do telehealth before the pandemic, and then it switched to almost everybody doing this. Is the 3 hours of courses is kind of to get everybody a baseline, whether they are going to practice telehealth or not, if they're a current licensee or applicant. The board felt that they needed to everybody needed to be able to show proof of this basic 3 hours of coursework covering law and ethics related to telehealth. So some of what you're referring to, Abigail, might be included in there. We're also continuing to there's just so much in terms of the law and what we need to examine relating to telehealth. It's such a big topic. We're kind of continuing to have these discussions in the telehealth committee. So there will likely be a second wave of legislation in a year or so, furthering what we're doing this year. So we're trying to do really just a comprehensive analysis of everything and kind of take things a step at a time. So this is kind of the law and ethics is kind of the first basic step It's something that we felt we could put in place right away, and then we're still continuing to have that conversation. So that's a really good point that you made.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Okay, perhaps we can open to the public, and then if there are any comments, we come back to our board. Oh, sorry, Chris Jones, go ahead.
Thanks. So first off, I'm the chair of the committee. I would welcome anyone if they'd like to join, to please join us. What we're learning, well, let me stop first. I got to thank Roseanne for all of the hard work that she's been doing. What we're learning is that we don't know a lot about telehealth. This is it's almost like a new science, a new method. It is a new method of therapy, but every time we uncover an issue, it opens up 10 more issues. And so we are trying to tackle all of them as they're coming up. Our main focus initially has been how do we maintain this access, this telehealth as an access point for consumers, and how do we make sure that the therapists that are delivering these services, how can we maintain the integrity of what it is that they're doing, protecting our consumers, and keep everybody moving forward as we're learning about how telehealth works. It has been a literal roller coaster of a committee. So all of your points are well taken. I've been taking some notes, and I'm sure that all of these things are going to get addressed. But I do encourage and welcome anybody who wants to come and sit in on the committee meeting or join the committee would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for that appeal. So true. Anyone else? Okay. I think we can actually open to the public right now. Moderator, thank you so much.
Certainly, we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you would like to make a comment on the Telehealth Committee update, you can look for the question mark icon, and then once you click that, you can type the word comment into the text box and hit send. If you are on a mobile device, the Q&A is behind the 3-dot other options. If you're on a telephone, you can hit *3 to raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I go ahead and close that up?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're back here. I definitely, let me see. I'm sorry. Nobody else has their hands raised. Okay, Roseanne, anything else to add on this?
On telehealth, no further additions.
Okay, and I believe because we don't have anything to vote, it was just an update, so we can move to the next item, which is item 17, licensing committee updates. And I believe that's also you, Roseanne.
Yep. So the licensing committee held its last meeting on November 19th of 2021. And the licensing committee was formed in order to conduct an in-depth discussion about several topics related to the licensing process and how to make that smoother and if there's any room for improvements on that. So it's kind of, we're examining topics one at a time on that. At the November meeting, the committee discussed the current 6-year limit on the age of experience hours, as well as the 6-year length of the associate registration number. The committee directed staff to do some further research and to resume discussion of that at the next meeting. So that's where we are with that committee right now. At previous meetings, the licensing committee had worked to develop a proposal to delete the requirements for renewing registrants with a failing law and ethics score to take a 12-hour course, and instead replace that with a 3-hour California law and ethics course requirement for all registrants. And so that proposal did end up being approved by the board and is currently being pursued in AB 1759, which was recently introduced. So that's where we're at with the licensing committee. And the next meeting, we lost some members of that committee, so we're doing some reshuffling. And once that's completed, we will set a future meeting of the licensing committee.
Thank you, Roseanne. Again, any questions, comments, requests from the board? None at this moment. Moderator, we can open to the public, please.
And we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx for public comment on the licensing report. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon. And once you hit that, it will give you a text box. You can type comment and hit send, and we will recognize people in the order that they submitted their request. Each person will have 2 minutes to comment. If you are on a telephone, you can hit *3 to raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device, you can find the Q&A behind the 3-dot other options. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close the option?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're back to the board. Also, just a little announcement. We do have opening for our licensing committee. So if any board member is interested in participating and you would like to know more, feel free to email me or ask Steve, our staff, to see what that entails, and we'll be very happy to have you. Roseanne, do you think if there's anything else you would like to add on this presentation, or should we move on?
I think that's pretty much everything, so we can go ahead and move on.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So we're moving now to agenda item 18, which is the CE regulations comments. And next on the agenda is pretty much the update of the discussion and consideration of comments received during the 45 days period comments. I know it's confusing because there is a lot of redundance. It's on the proposed continuation education and additional training regulations. It's we have potential actions, including adoptions and amendments to Title 16. Oh, there is an echo here. Someone is echoing. Do you hear the echo? Okay, I don't know. It's definitely not me. Maybe some of you has a phone and a computer together. Try to mute yourself if you can.
Looks like everyone's muted.
Right? It's interesting. But you hear the echo, right? It's coming back to me.
Yes, I do hear an effect, but I don't see that anyone other than the speakers are unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Let me try muting for a minute. 1 second.
Okay. And now it's good, I guess.
And how about now I'm back?
Yeah, I don't know because I haven't changed any settings. I received an echo that's very annoying. See?
You're echoing when Christy's on. So if Christy mutes while you're talking, then you're good.
Christy, do you have 2 devices going right now with this meeting?
No, just one.
Sometimes the volume too, if you can lower the volume a little bit on your device, sometimes that works.
Right.
I'll do that.
What I'm going to do, Chrissy, because it's your agenda item, I'm going to mute myself so you can go ahead anyway and present this agenda item. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right. So back in November 2019, the board approved some proposed regulatory changes regarding continuing education and also additional training requirements for licensure. The board approved some additional language changes to this proposal in September 2021. That approved language is provided in Attachment A. Some of the key provisions are updating the content requirements and streamlining the list of acceptable course providers for training courses for applicants for licensure, repealing some regulations that were necessary during the transition of our CE program. In the past, we had where the board approved individual CE providers, and back in, I think it was 2015, we moved away from that. So there was some transitional language. So that's being repealed. We're allowing a licensee to earn CE for completing a board occupational analysis survey, limiting hours that can be earned by teaching CE courses, amending requirements to qualify for a CE waiver, and then some minor technical changes. So again, all of that language was board approved, and was noticed to the public on November 12th of last year. And the public comment period ended on January 3rd, 2022. We did receive some public comment. The first two comments from Linda England and Svi Bellin were both pretty general comments and did not relate to this proposal. So we do not recommend any changes to the text based on their general statements. We did receive comments from 6 different organizations, and all these comment letters are provided in full in the attachments. Before I continue, I did want to mention that we today have 2 of our attorneys from the DCA regulation unit, and that there are some language changes that we've been working on that we're going to go through today, but they're here to kind of help us if we need to make any changes to the text. So that's, we really appreciate their being here today. So the 6 commenters, all of these letters had requested that self-study be added to the definition of a continuing education course in section 1887. And that they requested to do that for clarity and to ensure self-study continues to be allowed as an option. They feel it is an important option for the mode of course delivery, and it is an effective format. So we reviewed all the comments, and we do recommend some changes to the text based on these comments. So just a little bit of background about self-study, some context. So in 2015, when we did the big change in our CE program regulations, there had been a definition of self-study, and there was a limit on self-study hours, and we eliminated both of those. And the reason we did that, we had some pretty extensive discussions about self-study versus online learning, and we decided that self-study limits should be removed because there are so many effective self-study tools, and that often that comes in the form of online learning. And in our switch to having board designated approval agencies for CE providers and courses, those approval agencies have a lot more experience and knowledge in approving courses. And, the conclusion that they came to was that any self-study courses they allow would meet their strict quality specifications. So current language does allow for a licensee to gain their CE credits through any course format. So self-study is currently allowed, and the intent under the newly proposed regulations is to continue allowing self-study or any other course format as long as it's taken from an acceptable CE provider. But we do agree that a text change would help to clarify, because a lot of people expressed concern. We think there's not a problem with clarifying that self-study and other course formats are permitted. Especially since one of the proposed text changes would specify that a course must be provided in person or online. So one could argue that self-study may not be in person or online. It could be you have a book and you're studying that, and you're submitting maybe something, in a different sort of format. So our solution to this was striking the text that says in person or online and not adding the phrase self-study into the examples. We have a slightly different way of doing this. And also, so if we were to add self-study in there, we were anticipating that the Office of Administrative Law, which is the agency that has final approval authority over regulations, that they might require that we define self-study. And since we don't know what the future might hold in terms of course formats offered, we were concerned that a definition might be limiting, and that a little more general definition would allow for greater flexibility in course formats in the future. So to help clarify that self-study activities are acceptable, we proposed adding document-based instruction or activities. So you'll see that in attachment A for section 1887, 1887A, would add written, audio, or visual instruction or activities. Document-based audio or visual instruction or activities. However, in talking with our legal counsel, so right now that's what you see, but our legal counsel thinks that, or we kind of came to this conclusion between working together, instead of document-based, it should use the term written. So that is one thing I want, if we're considering this, there is a language change in the materials that you have in front of you that is not shown there. So again, that's 1887A. We're recommending that document-based be stricken and instead say written, audio, or visual instruction. And we do have some additionally proposed changes, and most of them are, actually all of them are non-substantive, but there was also another language change in working with our regulation council that came up last minute, and that I also need to make you aware of. And that, again, it's not really a substantive change. It's just changing the way that we're wording something. And this is in section 1810.5, subsection B. So I'll give you just a second to, if anybody wants to jump to that section in their materials. And this section has to do with acceptable training providers for additional coursework that's required prior to licensure. So this is not CE, this is training that when somebody applies to become licensed that they have to have. It's for human sexuality training, child abuse, assessment and reporting, alcohol and other chemical substance dependency, and California law and ethics, and crisis or trauma counseling. So the original language, so actually current language talks about allowing extension courses offered by an educational institution. And we had a language change that just kind of moved where we talked about extension programs. So subsection B1, you'll see that we've stricken including extension courses offered by such institutions, and we've moved it just earlier in the sentence and talking about an extension program, because we're talking about providers and not really courses in this section. So we wanted to clarify that it's an extension program. However, there is another small text change that, again, is not shown in your materials that, as I mentioned, we're working with our legal counsel on. So in subsections B1 and B2, after the words, including an extension program, we want to add offered by such an institution. So it would read, an educational institution, comma, including an extension program offered by such an institution, comma, accredited by a regional or national institutional accrediting agency that is recognized by the United States Department of Education. And then we would make that same change mirrored in subsection B2, adding that text that's, again, not shown in your packet, but we're going to add the words after the term extension program offered by such an institution. So hopefully, I know it's confusing having this not in the materials, but it was felt that this would be an improvement to the text that was important enough that we bring it to you today. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Chrissy, thank you so much. And thank you so much, staff, for re-elaborating and making sure that it's presentable in the way it was received. So if there are any questions, comments from our board members, clarifications, anything? I know there is a lot in here. It did help me to obviously go back to the material because I'm a visual person, so I need to see it. So please come forward if there are any questions or concerns, because definitely this is an item that we are putting to vote, right, Christy? Yes. we'll have to vote. John Savak.
Hi. Wow, Christy, thank you. I do not envy you your job, but I do have a question in 1887 in definitions. So it has in there academic studies, extension studies, lectures, conferences, seminars, workshops, document-based audio, or visual instruction or activities. So visual instruction or activities like addressing like that kind of webinar style, is that what that actual language is about, or does that need to be something different and additional?
Webinar style activities. So one thing to keep in mind is that the way this is defined is that the wording of this sentence says this may include but is not limited to. So just because a webinar isn't mentioned in here doesn't mean it's not allowed. And I think within the text that we have here, it's pretty clear that that is something that would fit in. And it does say, the sentence does, current language, a little bit later in the sentence, it says including interactive video instruction and activities electronically transmitted from another location. So I think webinar style fits.
Thank you. I just know that's a really common medium that's being used right now, especially in hybrid conference models. And I just wanted to kind of make sure we were kind of up to date with our definitions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? So, okay. Kelly Ranasinghe?
No, I just wanted to say I agree with the limitation on CE units for teaching. I think sometimes, at least from the state bar's perspective, people max out their teaching hours and they get triple time. So in the legal field, so they don't really learn anything new. They just kind of teach what they already know. I think that's a good.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, we can also open to the public and then come back to us. Moderator, can you please open to the public for any comments? Thank you.
And we've opened up the Q&A section of WebEx for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your screen and type the word comment in the text box and hit send. And we do have a request from Jennifer Alley. Jennifer, I will send you a request to unmute and you will have 2 minutes.
Good morning, almost afternoon. This is Jennifer Alley with CAMPT. I just want to thank the BBS staff for evaluating the comments. CAMPT was one of the organizations that submitted comments regarding self-study, and so we appreciate the proposed changes to allow that to continue. So thank you.
Thank you.
And the next request for public comment is from Renee Jeffrey. Renee, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you will have 2 minutes.
Hi there, thanks. I think that I may be a little bit out of order. I stepped away during the discussion, during the licensing committee update discussion, but I think that's probably where my question is best suited. And I've run into, so I have an inquiry and then I wanted to share kind of a personal story. I'm an AMFT who this year renewed their associate number for the 5th time. And this year was also diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And my treatment is really aggressive and isn't allowing me to study. Yes.
Renee, I really apologize. I know the board does want to hear, but we have to speak on the topic, and currently this is on regulations that we're passing. So
Okay.
if you, I'm sorry, I apologize, but if there will be a chance for public comment, which we definitely want to hear you. So
Okay, yeah, I've never participated, so I'm happy to hold on.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you so much for coming and being present. So if you are able to stay, we definitely would love to hear from you. So thank you, so that we can actually.
No, I will stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Moderator?
our next request for comment is from Ben Caldwell. Ben, I'm going to send your request to unmute, and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the board and staff. Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT. Christy, thank you for the changes here and for the summary. This is all very responsive, very well done, and greatly appreciated. I know this has been discussed previously in earlier iterations here. I just want to reinforce that while most of the overall changes are very supportive of ongoing learning for licensed professionals, credit toward a CE requirement for completing an occupational analysis doesn't really line up with that. I know that the board is interested in incentivizing people for participating, but the fundamental reason for a CE requirement in the first place is to ensure that licensees stay current, that their knowledge of the field stays up to date. And I'm concerned that giving credit for participating in the survey kind of trivializes what CE is supposed to be for. It makes it harder to support the underlying philosophical argument that we're really trying to keep people up to date in their knowledge in their field. So I would encourage the board to give thought to that particular component. Otherwise, this is a very clean and specific and helpful proposal. So thank you.
And I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. So we're back to the board. Any, based on the inputs that we received from the public, any other comments, questions, clarifications? Okay.
Member Ehrlich.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. I was going there. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so it's actually in regards to what I believe Mr. Caldwell was, who just spoke. I also perhaps have maybe a little bit of concerns about allowing credit for CE to participate in that survey. I don't know what our recourse is, if we're able to do anything about that or lodge any objections. I've never seen something like that with the state bar. I don't know if I know of something like that with any other licensing board, but I'd be interested to know if we did have sort of some misgivings about that, what our options are.
Christy, sorry.
Yes, thank you. So it is actually too late at this point to do anything with that topic. At this point, the board did approve the language and we had a public comment period, and I did not receive a comment from Mr. Caldwell on that or from anyone else in regards to that. So what is before the board today is reviewing the public comments that were received during that, and it is a strict, it's set in law in terms of that public comment period. So while we really appreciate the comment, it's not something we can do anything with at this point in the regulation process. So it's something we could look at, for the future.
And Board Member Walker.
Thank you
Yes,
very
Miranda.
much. My follow-up was similar to Mr. Ehrlich, so you may have just answered that question as well. It seems a little bit unfortunate that we're not able to address the matter any further than what we can do. I understand. But I'm glad that this will be on the record, that we did have this discussion and have this public member make this comment along the lines, because I concur and have similar concerns with giving credit as already stated, because I'll just leave it there. But thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Thank you also for the feedback. We witnessed this conversation for, it has obviously a past, and a lot of comments were brought and a lot of discussions that we had in regards to this as well. I would like to move a motion, but I don't know if there are any other, we can discuss after the motion as well, but my motion will go in the directions to approve the responses the staff has prepared in to make any other any technical or non-substantive changes that are needed to complete the rulemaking process. And then I see, John Savick, I see that you have a...
I second the motion.
Thank you. Was that stated properly, Christy? I just want to make sure I reflect the conversation we had so far, because I know that there's been some changes.
I think I do want to try to reformulate that motion. So approve the proposed responses to public comments received and direct staff to make any board approved changes, including the changes detailed by staff during the presentation in regards to sections 1887A and 1810.5 subsection B, and any technical or non-substantive changes needed to complete the rulemaking process.
Yes, thank you. I'll definitely, that will be the motion. John, are you okay to second the same?
This is Heather Hoganson. May I briefly add to Christie's proposed motion?
Sure.
I would also suggest, if no relevant adverse comments are received, to adopt the sections as noticed and proceed to the Office of Administrative Law. That word adopt is very important.
Thank you, Heather. And for those of you that might be a little bit confused, Heather's today our legal counsel because Sabina couldn't be here. And so that was her input. Thank you. Chrissy, again, that will be the motion on the floor. I believe John Savick was seconding. I just want to make sure that that was okay with the added changes.
I still second the motion as Christy proposed with the changes from DCA.
Perfect. So we have a motion on the floor. I believe, moderator, I need to go out and see if there are any other inputs from the public. So if we can please open.
Actually, for this type of proceeding, since this is a regulation, I just defer just to make sure with the attorneys, but I don't believe we go out for public comment on this.
Okay.
So we could take a vote.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Wait, for this agenda item, I think the public is afforded an opportunity to comment on each. Okay. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you for guiding me through this. Moderator, please, if you can open to the public input.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you have something to add, you would look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Type the word comment in the text box and send. We will take commenters in order. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close the comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so back to the board. We have a motion on the floor by me, second by John Savick. Are there any other discussions, comments, clarifications? Okay, then I think Christina Kitamura, you can hold the vote. Thank you so much.
Okay, Crystal Anthony?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Ross Ehrlich?
Yes.
Susan Friedman?
Yes.
Diana Herwick?
Yes.
Justin Huff?
Yes.
Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Abigail Ortega?
I'm going to abstain.
Kelly Ranasinghe?
Yes.
John Savick?
Yes.
Wendy Straps?
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. Okay, we're now moving agenda item 19 that has to do with video conferencing. Is an update on the review of Legislative Council amendments to the board supervision via video conferencing bill proposal, and the discussion and possible action on additional amendments to the proposal itself. I believe Roseanne is going to give us an update on this. Thank you, Roseanne.
Yeah, thanks, Max. So we are included in attachment A of your packet is our board's recently introduced supervision via video conferencing bill based on the work of our telehealth committee, and that's it's been introduced as AB 1758 by Assemblymember Abigail Curry. It is moving forward as an urgency measure. And so we wanted to bring to you a couple of points that were brought up to us by the author's office, and also some feedback from Assembly Business and Professions Committee regarding the draft. Also, once the board approves language, we have board approved language that was approved in November. Once Legislative Council gets that language, it's their job to draft it for sort of the legislature. They do a review and make some sometimes technical legal changes. And so they did make a few technical legal changes that I just want to run by you to make sure that everything's okay and that the board approves with the language moving forward. So what this bill does is it permits, right now, individuals who are seeking hours of experience toward licensure are only permitted to be supervised via video conferencing if they're in an exempt setting. An exempt setting is a government, a school, a college, university, or an institution that's nonprofit and charitable. And so during COVID, obviously, supervision via video conferencing was very popular due to the stay-at-home orders. It was utilized by almost everybody. And it was found that it really increases access to individuals to supervision options, especially in rural and underserved areas where there might not be a high concentration of supervisors. It lets the associates that are trying to gain hours work in those areas and still have supervision. So there was a big desire expressed through the stakeholders and also the board to move forward with allowing supervision via video conferencing in all settings. So that's what this bill does. Right now, it clarifies in law that face-to-face direct supervisor contact means either in person or contact via two-way real-time video conferencing. It does require that a supervisor must conduct a meeting with a new supervisee within 60 days of the commencement of any supervision. And it requires that during that meeting, the supervisor assess the appropriateness of allowing the supervisee to conduct services via telehealth, and also the appropriateness of the supervisee to receive supervision via video conferencing. In the discussions, the board decided to include a sunset date of January 1, 2025 on this allowance. And so unless the sunset date is deleted or extended, the law will revert back to what current law says now. And the reasoning behind why that was done is just telehealth is a vast, kind of new frontier in terms of it raises a lot of issues. Like at the last telehealth committee meeting, we had a conversation that's going to be continuing about, where should the trainee or the associate be working? Are they appropriate to be working in their home and things like that? So the board wanted to move forward with this as quickly as possible, but it also wanted to do its due diligence and allow for possible changes in the future in case other issues arise as we're having this discussion and as the profession evolves so quickly with COVID and telehealth. So that's the reasoning for that sunset date. So the first thing that I'm asking you to do today is review the language drafted by Legislative Council in Attachment A. And it contains some very minor wording changes to the language that was originally approved by the board. I believe that the wording changes are I don't think you can call them non-substantive, but they're very technical. A lot of them really lie on page 19-7, 4980.43.2, B1C, where it talks about for purposes of the subdivision, they made a slight language change there. Also some slight language changes to subsection C, and then subsection D of that section is structured slightly differently than the original. So I've included the original approved language in attachment B. But so for each of those sections, and then there's a corresponding identical section for LMFT and LPCC with those same amendments. So just wanted to make sure that the board, that we really crossed all our I's and dotted all our T's and made sure that the board was on board with those changes. And then the second thing I'd like to discuss today is some potential amendments to the bill. The author, as we submitted this bill to an author to introduce, the author's office and also the Assembly Business and Professions Committee took a look at the language, and also Ledge Council took at the language, and they had a few suggestions about how we could potentially make the bill better. So I wanted to present those today. And so there's 3 potential amendments. And so I'm going to talk about potential amendment number 1 first. And that was that they both the Assembly Business and Professions Committee and the author's office suggested that we consider clarifying the term appropriateness that's used in the bill. We talk about the supervisor needing to assess the appropriateness of allowing a supervisee to gain experience hours via telehealth and receive supervision via 2-way real-time video conferencing. So to some extent, appropriateness might best be left room for the professional judgment of the supervisor. 4980.4 through 0.1 of our law, for example, lists the supervisor responsibilities, and there is a lot of discretion left to the supervisor there. We don't detail every particular scenario that may or may not be appropriate. They are tasked as a supervisor with using professional standards and what they've learned as a professional to use their professional judgment. However, some additional guidance might be helpful in this case. So I've given you one option, which is option 1, that simply defines what appropriateness entails for each activity. And I've included kind of an outline of some things that might be important to consider for the supervisor. The abilities of the supervisee, the preferences of both the supervisor and the supervisee, the privacy of the locations where they're at, or some really important things that they might want to consider when they're thinking about, do we really want to do telehealth and video conferencing via telehealth? The second option, it comes from having some discussions with our professional organizations who wanted to provide some feedback. They suggested that in this bill, we're really focusing on, the intent of this bill is really to focus on supervision via 2-way real-time video conferencing, not experience hours via telehealth. So they suggest striking the subsection A of the requirement, where it talks about the supervisor assessing gaining experience hours via telehealth. We're still kind of working on telehealth and guidance. We're working on some guidance documents for telehealth committee in terms of what's appropriate in terms of setting, what's not. So we're not really ready, they felt like, to expand upon providing a list of what is appropriate for gaining hours of experience via telehealth. We might be ready to do that down the road, but they expressed a desire to really continue that conversation and possibly add that back in later with follow-up legislation if that is needed. So if looking at option 2, the suggestion would be to strike the gaining experience hours via telehealth as shown there, and then just focus on receiving supervision via 2-way real-time video conferencing and whether that or not that is appropriate and defining appropriateness for that specifically. So that's the first potential amendment. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me move on really quickly to the other 2. The second potential amendment is something that was suggested as a possibility by Legislative Council. They suggest that the board potentially consider what should happen if the supervisor determines that video conferencing is not appropriate. So could go either way on this. It might be kind of obvious that you shouldn't do it if it's not appropriate, but we could add some language saying, to the part where they have to document the results of their assessment, that they should not utilize supervision via video conferencing if it's not appropriate. So that's a suggestion that the board can consider. And then finally, the Assembly Business and Professions Committee had a suggestion about the sunset date. We have included a January 1, 2025 sunset date. We figured that would give us approximately 2 years to develop and run legislation to either make some modifications and delete the sunset date or extend it if it was thought more time was needed. The Business and Professions Committee actually suggested, and I think it's a good suggestion, that the sunset date be extended one additional year to the board's sunset date. When the board undergoes sunset, there is an analysis by the Senate Business and Professions Committee and the Assembly Business and Professions Committee of the board and its operations and some of its important topics and issues. So any extension or fine tuning of the law could then potentially be discussed and included as part of the board's next sunset bill. So it could potentially be a little bit more seamless to do it that way. So that was their suggestion. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to conduct an open discussion about the language generally drafted in attachment A to make sure that everybody's okay with just the technical comments as written with that bill. And then I'd like to move on to discuss each of the three amendments separately to determine if the board would like to move forward with those or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. Thank you so much. So to follow your request, we are going to address the attachment A to make sure that the board sits right with that. And then any board member that is sharing their comments and thoughts, you can also share with us which of these amendments best represent your inputs. So do we have anyone with any questions or comments or input? Scrolling through. Anyone? John Savek.
Hey, Roseanne, I definitely lean towards option 2 in Amendment 1. And the reason being, once again, that all of these definitions of telehealth are still a little bit kind of the wild, wild west of therapy right now. And I think addressing primarily the languaging of someone being appropriate for supervision via this mechanism is more priority of the bill, as I've heard it discussed in our movement so far. And I had one other question. And it is about moving the sunset date. One of the things, once again, talking about this idea, there's a very rapidly moving, rapidly changing part of our work and our industry. I'm just wondering if adding that extra year will either hinder us in maybe being able to be reactive to changes that will probably be coming up in the next 2 to 3 years, and have an extra year of perhaps not serving all of our registrants and their best needs for the changes that are going to be happening so rapidly in this particular field.
Thanks, John. I think that is a really good way of thinking about it. I don't, in terms of adding the extra year, the board can always act sooner if it's ready. It just provides sort of a catch-all if for some reason, the board is unable to get legislation or, that we're not quite ready. Let's say that the pandemic continues and there's still a lot of questions about what going back to normal looks like. It does buy an extra year and it provides a more guaranteed, I don't want to say guaranteed because nothing's ever guaranteed at the legislature, but it provides a more it's very highly likely that we would be able to use the sunset bill as a vehicle if needed. Not a guarantee, but it's likely. But the board always could act sooner to pursue a bill proposal if it was ready to as well, and we wouldn't risk having to worry as much about that sunset date ending.
Yeah, and I guess that's the one thing that I want us just to be careful of, because right now we're chasing a gap in legislation that's opening up really soon. And I wouldn't want us to hit another hurdle in the future that we then were like hamstringed for another year because we were trying to work out some legislation challenges.
Yeah, I really don't think it would because we could always pursue it on our own. And we typically pursue 1 to 3 bills on average about every year. So it's not uncommon for this board to run legislation. But it does, I sort of think of it as a backup plan. It does kind of line up the timing with the sunset date so that if we need that vehicle, then it's an option. It's not coming a year too late, if that makes sense.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Roseanne, also for explaining that, even because we all need a reminder. Also, we have, again, many board members have experienced even the sunset, what that is all about. But I do agree with you in regards to the timing, because if we are ready sooner, much better. But if we're not, we miss the opportunity of the sunset date as a instrument for affirming those changes. It could actually postpone all that work even further down. So I do see that. Okay, any other, and thank you, John, again. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Board member Walker.
Dr. Walker has her hand up.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. I'm so sorry that I didn't see you.
No problem. I totally understand. So I'm going to address the same two amendments as Mr. Sovek. First of all, let me preface that I do believe that language and policy go hand in hand. So I appreciate the detail that that the proposed amendments are bringing our attention to at this time. So I think it's very, very near and dear to us to go over this content or these changes. So thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. So with the First Amendment, I hear you when we understand that telehealth is a new frontier, and we want to be mindful and cautious when we're looking at definitions. However, I do believe that definitions are best practice in any piece of policy, particularly legislation. So I'm all for the definition. I understand that for me, I'm looking at it as a guidepost. So I appreciate the proposed amendments along those lines. And for the Third Amendment, could you just clarify again the proposed sunset date as written?
Yeah, so there's two sunset dates actually that we're talking about, so it's a little confusing. So the bill has a sunset, the supervision via telehealth bill proposal has a sunset date that the board decided on of January 1, 2025. What happened is the Assembly Business and Professions Committee, when they looked at this bill, they pointed out that the board in general has its own sunset date as a board. Every 4 years, the board comes up for sunset. And that's actually just a year later, January 1, 2026. So they suggested, why don't you just coincide your bill's sunset date with your board's sunset date, and we'll talk about it at that time, if needed.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Helms, for that clarification. So I'm supporting this because I do see it as a catch-all. And given that board members fluctuate, we're in, we're out, we're moving on, we're termed out, whatever all that is, it's nice to have that in place, I would say, as proposed with that additional year there. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walkers. Thank you. Okay, screening through, making sure there are other board members. If not, we can also go to the public and hear from our professional organizations that I'm sure they might want to share the thoughts as well. So we can go out to the audience and then come back to us. Are we ready? Thank you.
Yes, we've opened up the public comment forum, which is the Q&A feature of WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on the topic of supervision via telemedicine, we do have a comment request from Jennifer Alley. Jennifer, I will send you a request to unmute, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Well, good afternoon, BBS board and staff. First, I'd like to, thank Roseanne for her very thorough summary of the changes. It was excellent, and the telehealth committee has been very thorough in our conversations and discussions. And I just want to, let everybody know that CAMP is supportive of option 2 in the proposal. We're very, very extremely supportive of the supervision stuff and appreciate the urgency clause to allow it to go into effect before January 1, 2023. But we do think that, adding the assessment of the location and associate use of telehealth is a little bit premature as the telehealth committee continues that discussion. But we will be advocating for support of the bill and including it in our lobby day moving forward. We just think that the telesupervision needs of our associates is just so important. And so we do appreciate the response to the board to those concerns that have been expressed throughout the pandemic regarding the waivers and the need for those to continue and taking action on an urgency bill this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
And our next request for comment is from Ben Caldwell. Ben, I will send you a request to unmute and you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT, and I want to second Ms. Alley in giving thanks to the Telehealth Committee and to staff for moving this forward so thoughtfully and effectively. In relation to the particular amendments, I want to second what Mr. Sovic and Dr. Walker have said. These are all, I think, good, worthwhile amendments. For the first amendment, I would agree with Ms. Alley that option 2 is probably the better one. If the sentiment of the board were to look more at option 1, then I would just suggest striking from paragraph A there, the preferences of the client, because in the context that we're talking about here, it would be impossible for the supervisor to assess that. But if it's a sentiment of the board, option 2 is certainly preferable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment forum?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Okay. We're back to the board. Are there any... okay, I see your hand, John Savek. It's all over the screen. Hey, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So are we at a point where a motion might be a good direction to going?
Sure.
Okay. Roseanne, can you help me out? I'm thinking basically what I'm looking at is supporting the bill moving forward, potential amendments, option 2. And then other amendments as written with the no substantive change, blah, blah, language thing. Roseanne, help me.
Okay, so what I would suggest on this is I would suggest that the motion be to approve the language, to first approve the language in attachment A as drafted, and then approve and direct staff to pursue the following amendments. For amendment number 1, pursue option 2. For amendment number 2, pursue the language as drafted. And potential amendment 3, extend the sunset date to January 1, 2026.
That sounds like exactly what I was hoping to move.
And also to make any non-substantive amendments and pursue the amendments with the author.
Wonderful.
I second that, Max.
Dr. Harbeck, thank you. Okay, then we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Any other comments? Because we do have a motion now, we are asking the moderator to go to the public and see if there are any other additional comments. Thank you, moderator.
You're welcome. And we have opened up the public comments section of WebEx in case there are questions about the motion raised. If you do have a comment, please click on the question mark icon and type the word comment in the text box and hit send. Each person will be given 2 minutes to respond. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Back to the board, we have a motion proposed by John Sobek, and then we have a second. Oh gosh, I know it was, sorry, it's getting late. Dr. Harbeck, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. If there are not any other comments, I will ask Christina to call the vote. Thank you, Christina.
Crystal Anthony?
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Al Serlet,
Yes.
Susan Friedman,
Yes.
Dr. Diana Hurwitz,
Yes.
Justin Huft,
Yes.
Christopher Jones,
Yes.
Abigail Ortega,
Yes.
Kelly Ronasinghe,
Yes.
John Sobek,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Christina. A little bit, we still have a few agenda items to go through. It could go fast, it could go slow. Obviously, it depends on all of us, so I don't want to assume anything. Would you like to take a break? Sometimes for the new fellow board member, we can take a lunch break that could be like 30, 40 minutes and then resume our work after that. Sometimes we take less so that we power through it and you know and take the time that we need to finish the rest of the agenda items. So I'm just really open to any suggestions. If there is a need, definitely there is a need of a break. I think I feel it, at least for myself. I can speak for me. But if you would like to take lunch, we can actually stop for 30 minutes. Would that be okay? Because we do have only 4, I believe, agenda items. Some of those are usually do not take longer, but the others really don't know. So maybe a lunch of 30 minutes is needed.
Max,
Okay?
can I make a suggestion?
Please, yes.
So my sense is that the next agenda item is going to go rather quickly, and then the ledge and reg update will likely as well. So we can definitely take lunch if people want to, but I don't think that we have an extraordinarily large amount of time left. So a shorter break may be more appropriate if people are wanting to get out sooner.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Roseanne, for saying that. And obviously, we don't want to hold the public hostage for too long either. So perhaps then let's take about a 15 minutes break. Is that okay? It's 12:16. Sorry?
I would like a 30-minute break. I felt it yesterday. I don't feel like I need a lunch. Sorry.
Okay, I respect that. Don't be sorry. We all respect that. Okay, then it's 12:15. We're convening at 12:45 for the public and the board, and we'll see you there. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone's coming back in. It's 12:46. With my quick scan here, I can see that it looks like all our board members are present. Moderator, let me know when you're ready to start recording the meeting so we can go back live. I mean, I know we are live, but recording our meetings.
We actually had not paused, so we are still recording.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't know that during the breaks we weren't pausing, so thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. We're resuming our public portion of this meeting. Today is February 11, time 12:46. My name is Max Disposti, pronounced he, him. I'm the board chair, and we are resuming our agenda. I believe that we just concluded the agenda item 19 of video conferencing, and now we're moving to agenda item 20 on continuing education. What we're going to address is the review of the Legislative Council amendments to the board's continuing education bill proposal, and the discussion and possible action on additional amendments to the proposal. And Roseanne again will introduce this agenda item. Thank you, Roseanne.
Thanks, Max. So yeah, this is a discussion about our second board-sponsored bill proposal. Again, when Ledge Council drafted the language, they made a few technical changes, and one is definitely not non-substantive. So I need to do my due diligence and bring it back to the board to make sure that the board approves of the language as drafted. So what this bill proposal does is it mainly makes changes related to continuing education. It does 2 things related to that. It proposes requiring applicants for licensure and current licensees to complete that 3-hour training or coursework in the provision of mental health services via telehealth, including law and ethics. And then a second thing that it does, separate from that, is it requires all board registrants to complete a 3-hour continuing education course in California law and ethics each renewal cycle. The bill also makes a couple of really minor clarifications that certain pre-licensees, like associate social workers and associate professional clinical counselors and clinical counselor trainees, can provide services via telehealth, because currently the law is silent about that. So the board approved this proposal, and then we turned it into legislative council to draft language. And so they drafted the bill and made a couple of changes. So the change that I want to really draw your attention to pertains to the proposed requirement that board registrants complete the 3 hours of CE in California law and ethics each renewal period. The board's draft language simply stated the registrant needed to certify completion of this requirement each renewal period. Leg Council actually added that a registrant needs to certify completion of the requirement under penalty of perjury. Legislative Council is actually, they make a good point. That is consistent with what our licensees are required to do. It just states that for licensees in our CE regulations. So it is consistent with current board practice. And we will need to eventually, if this bill passes, update our continuing education regulations to include registrants, but we can't do that until the bill passes. So I think that they are right to make the change, but I do need to bring that back to the board for approval. So I've listed on page 2 of the memo all of the sections and subsections where that penalty of perjury wording was added. And it's also shown in attachment A, which is Leg Council's amendments. And so I just want to conduct an open discussion about the changes that you see in attachment A and determine if the board approves the language as drafted.
Thank you, Roseanne. Okay, let's open the discussion. Are there any comments? Yes, Crystal Anthony.
This is like just a question. Is it going to be available for them to when they go online and they could just like click a box saying under penalty or perjury and then uploading an item for it'll be easy?
Yeah, the CE requirement for the licensees, it'll be just like our current licensees do with their 36 hours every other year. So we would do a similar format in Breeze for that for registrants when they renew, if they choose to renew online.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, let me open to the public and see if there are any comments or inputs. Moderator, can you please open to the public? Thank you.
And we've opened up WebEx's Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you've got a comment on the agenda item 20, please look for the question mark icon, usually in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, behind the 3-dot other options, type the word comment in the text box and hit send. We will take comments in the order received, and each person will be given 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A option?
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay. Roseanne, question to you. I would like to make a motion. I know we had plenty of conversations around this, so I really appreciate you also your ability to understand to actually pull that out and realizing that perhaps needed more board discussion. You just really amazing opportunity for us. In case though, we have new board members. In case there are any additional questions, I would like to, in the meantime, move a motion. How the motion will look like since you put the amendment there is just how it will look like.
I would suggest that the motion be to approve the language shown in attachment A as drafted by Leg Council and also direct staff if needed to make any non-substantive changes.
I'll second it.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have that.
Mr. Chair, who made the first?
Oh, it would be me. Sorry, even though Roseanne beautifully articulated that motion for me.
Thank you.
I'm the one making it. Thank you for asking. Perfect. And we built also this trust throughout the years that also our staff, it's amazing to, when we say that we vote for non-substantial changes, we always can count on the staff to come back with us when actually occurred to be some. So thank you, Roseanne. Thank you so much. That really, really helpful.
Sometimes it can seem tedious, but it's definitely necessary because you never know, if somebody might have an objection.
Truly, very true. Because we have a board, motion on the board and on the floor, we are going to ask our audience for any inputs or any comments. So, moderator, thank you for helping us through. With opening to the public.
And we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If there are any comments on the motion, you can look to the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen and type the word comment into the text box and hit send. Each person will be recognized in the order the request was received, and each person will have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Any other comments from our fellow board members? Scanning through. Okay, then I believe we can go for a vote. Christina, thank you.
Crystal Anthony,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Susan Friedman,
Yes.
Diana Herbert,
Yes.
excuse me, Justin Hubt,
Yes.
Christopher Jones,
Yes.
Abigail Ortega,
Yes.
Ali Ramasinghe,
Yes.
John Sovek,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina. We're now moving to agenda item 21. This is an update that Roseanne will provide for the board-sponsored legislations. Usually we don't take action. It's an update, but obviously it's open to comments, questions, clarifications, and so forth from us and the public. Thank you again, Roseanne. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Max. So, the legislature just reconvened for the year at the beginning of January. They're in the second year of a 2-year legislative cycle. So there is a few 2-year bills still floating around and active out there that we're tracking. But also they are in the process of introducing new legislative proposals, and all new legislative proposals have to be introduced by February 18th this year. So we are in the process of taking a look at what's being introduced and tracking those and looking to see what the board may be interested in taking a position on. So I'm currently tracking that. I am happy to announce, as I alluded to earlier, that the board's 2 bill proposals this year have been introduced. We found an author, Assemblymember Abigail Curry, for both of them. The supervision via video conference bill proposal, AB 1758, is the one we discussed earlier of making two-way real-time video conferencing supervision allowable in all settings. And the author has agreed, per the board's request, to offer this as urgency legislation. And what that means is that instead of if the governor signs it, instead of becoming effective January 1st of next year, it would become effective immediately upon his signing. So it still has to go through all the regular committee processes. I still expect that to take some time. The legislator has a lot of competing priorities, but we are hopeful that might mean that it gets signed into effect maybe a little bit soon, becomes into effect a few months sooner than it ordinarily would have. So stay tuned on that. And then the second bill proposal we just discussed, AB 1759, that discusses the CE and the technical changes related to telehealth. And so that is moving forward as well. We also have submitted our omnibus bill proposal, which is just minor technical and non-substantive changes that we submit to Senate Business and Professions Committee, kind of its cleanup every year. So they will be introducing that. Usually that one, it doesn't have the same deadlines. That one will probably introduce sometime in March is my best guess. And then there's a couple of bills that the board took positions on last year that are still alive, or at the time of this, when I put this together, they were still alive. So there's a status update. We're waiting to kind of see if a couple of them move. AB 988 and 29. AB 29 is dead, but a new bill has kind of replaced that. So we'll be talking about that soon. AB 646, which the board had a support of amended position on, that has resumed moving. So you can look forward to hearing about that more from me in May, along with all of the other legislative proposals that the board will be considering at that time.
Thank you so much, Roseanne, for keeping track of the progress or not in regards to legislative efforts. So it's definitely important for us to know where we are. Are there any requests or clarifications, any more in-depth questions around any particular bills that Roseanne has referred to? Johnson. Yes.
Hey, Roseanne, I know I love asking you this question, but because we've now got a sponsor, we know it's expedited. What would be the most we got it efficiently done timeline of the supervision bill? What's the most likely timeline, just from your experience?
We don't have a lot of experience running urgency bills. The last one I ran was at the beginning of my time here about 10 years ago. And so I believe that one got signed in August and became effective immediately. I would say best case scenario probably would be July, more likely August or September.
Okay. So Steve, as far as DC and the governor's office are going, then we will definitely have a gap, it looks like, coming up for us.
Yes, unfortunately, we will experience a gap, most likely. Seeing that the emergency order is probably going to be complete or lifted. I think March 31st we're expecting. So yes, unfortunately, there will be a gap.
And is there any way to approach this with a process of, we have legislation in process, can we get extensions as that's going through? I mean, are there any ways to kind of help the office understand what we're actually trying to do and see if we can avoid that gap? Because that gap is going to just implode our registrants, licensees, trainees, everybody.
Unfortunately, I don't think legally there's a way we can do it. We are going to keep communication open, though, definitely. And I believe that the department is really aware of the situation. But we will keep communicating to see, strategizing to see if there is anything we can do. Unfortunately, go ahead.
I would add too that there is awareness at the legislature. We've had several conversations. People are aware of the urgency, but like I said, the legislature has a lot of competing priorities. So we are hoping that they will be willing to schedule it for committee hearings as quickly as possible, and we can express our desire, and we certainly will continue to express our desire on that for it to move as quickly as possible. I think there is an understanding of the urgency, but it is my understanding from everything that I've been told legally that once the governor's emergency order or emergency executive order ends, that allowance that he's made for the Director of Consumer Affairs to issue law waivers goes away. It's not a power that they have anymore. So that is my understanding, and we continue to voice that our strong desire is that this moves as quickly as possible.
And also search for in the communication, see if there is any solution we can do in the temporary. I don't believe there will be, but we can definitely keep looking. Yes.
Could I just encourage that looking be actually an aggressive conversations on an ongoing basis? Because I do believe this gap is going to cause huge repercussions in our field. And if there's any way to bring that real, I'm talking implosion energy here, especially we've been talking, Kelly always brings up looking at rural communities. We're looking at a real challenge for a 3 to 5 month period while we're in the middle of saying this is what we as a board are supporting and want to do legislatively moving forward.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I will take that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Roseanne, for answering that. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to the public to see if there are any comments, and then we'll come back to us. Moderator, thank you.
And we've opened up the Q&A portion of WebEx in order to facilitate public comment. If anyone has comment on this issue, you may click the question mark inside a square at the bottom right of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. Our first request for comment comes from Ben Caldwell. Ben, I will send you a request to unmute, and then you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT. And I wanted to address the same issue that Mr. Sovek is talking about. Understand that the board's ability and DCA's ability to do anything definitive in terms of regulation is probably limited. However, I wondered whether, given this gap or potential likely future gap in the legality of video supervision in non-exempt settings between when the waiver is lifted and when the legislation can take effect, I wondered whether it might be possible for the BBS to announce that it's going to use enforcement discretion. Basically to say, we understand that there is this gap in policy. However, understanding the context, we are not going to enforce discipline for violations of the standard while the bill is in process. I don't know the legality of that. It might be a question better posed to staff and legal counsel, but it would sure be nice if, as Mr. Sovek was saying, if people can have some level of comfort and consistency that they are able to continue in video supervision throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any other questions from our audience?
I see no other requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're back here to the board. I just would like to add that an additional concern is that I don't know how many people out there, obviously they are under our jurisdictions, really understand the process sometimes. We're going to get the blame, I'm sure, which is the minimum, because this is a real problem. But I'm also concerned at the fact that, a lot of our folks that we serve might not understand that we're really waiting for the legislative effort to pass. Because from the time I've been here, we moved light speed on this, considering, we really push it through and consider we were under COVID and everything. We had done beyond even any other regular time. And yet, obviously, we had to respect the time of the legislatives, their vote. So I'm sure we're going to need a lot of explanations, a lot of sharing. And hopefully there is a solution that could be implemented between those months. And let's, and continue to discuss this. So I'm sure next board meeting we'll have another update from Roseanne. Thank you, Roseanne. Thank you so much. I believe we're moving now to the board rule-making proposal, agenda item 22. And now we actually have Christy coming back to us. Thank you, Christy Berger, actually presenting on this, even though we're not going to take any action, but we will have a discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we have, this is the status of the different rulemaking proposals that we have sort of in the pending. So the first one is the continuing education and additional training requirements, which we talked about in an earlier agenda item. So the board considered comments today that were received during the public comment period. And so the next step is to notice the language changes for a 15-day public comment period where the public will be able to comment on those particular changes, the new changes that we're making. and then it will continue through the rulemaking process. The next set of regulations staff's been working on is in regards to the enforcement process. This is something that's been pending for a long time because of we'd started with a proposal and then we had some legislation, AB 2138, that happened that would have affected a lot of this. So we pulled it, and then staff has been working behind the scenes to determine what other changes might need to be made. And we've had some changes in management in our enforcement unit over time. And, so it's just taking us some time to get back to it, but we have absolutely are planning to move it forward this year, hoping to bring it to Policy and Advocacy Committee in July. The next regulation package are some pretty technical changes relating to exam waiting periods, professional corporations, and accrediting agencies and equivalent degrees. That is something that's been board approved and has been in preparation for the initial review process. So I'm working on those documents and I'm working on getting that to the Department of Consumer Affairs for their initial review process. And from there, it would go on for public notice. So those are the three we have in the hopper.
Thank you. Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much. Are there any comments? Any questions? Okay, I don't believe I see any hands raised. Okay, let's see from the audience. Moderators, you can please open to the audience and see if there are any questions or comments. Thank you.
We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the rulemaking proposals, you can look for the question mark inside a box icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. And in the text box, write the word comment and hit send, and we will recognize people in the order their comment request was received. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close that feature?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. That will conclude, again, thank you, Christy. That will conclude agenda item 22. Our next agenda items is actually public comments. We do know that every time we open to the public comments for items not on the agenda, we just want to remind that the board cannot discuss or take any action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether or not to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. And all commentators will have 2 minutes to present or share or ask. Thank you so much. And again, moderator, if you can open to the public to see if there are any public comments on items not in our agenda.
Exactly, and we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to suggest something for a future agenda or discuss anything or mention anything that is not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. You can click on the question mark, or you can hit *3 to raise your hand if you're calling in. The Q&A is behind the 3-dot other options if you are on a mobile device. And we have a request for comment from someone represented as Adrian Shilton. Adrian, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon.
You're unmuted.
This is Adrian Shilton with the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, and we represent 160 community-based organizations that are serving children, youth, and families in public human services systems. We are really appreciative of everything that the BBS staff are doing to process applicants, and we have had great collaboration with both Steve and Roseanne. One issue that we have talked with both Steve and Roseanne about is the workforce crisis in children's mental health. There are a lot of reasons for this, and COVID has certainly exacerbated the crisis that we have. So we've been in conversation with Steve and Roseanne about ideas to both expand the capacity of our workforce and also regulatory and administrative relief that could be helpful. So one of our asks is that if a future agenda item could be about strategies around this, about the crisis in our workforce, and strategies that the BBS could employ to expedite the processing times of applicants or other needs that the BBS might have, so we can really reduce all barriers and entry into the workforce. So respectfully request an agenda item around that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our next request for comment is from Renee Jeffrey. Renee, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Renee Jeffrey and I'm in the AMFT. And as I was mentioning earlier, I'm at the point where I've renewed my associate number 5 times as of this February. And back in August, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and am undergoing aggressive treatment. And I don't know that I will be able to sit for my exam by the time I was approved to retake it. I took it once in the beginning of August, right before my diagnosis, and I was approved to retake it this past December. So I have until December 2022 to retake it. And I guess in researching this and kind of finding out what my options were, I realized that this is a law that doesn't allow flexibility in terms of associate number renewals and so forth. And I called CAMFT and they indicated that you all were knocking around the idea of extending it to 8 renewals or something similar. So I don't know if there are comments, if you can comment on that and or if it's something that can be addressed on as a later agenda item.
What I would like to do, thank you also for your patience for stay here until the last minute. What I would like to do, perhaps having our staff contacting you directly, Steve, is that possible after the meeting so they can actually address with you any particular about your licensing process so that we can see that a little bit closely, and I'm sure our staff will have the answers. Is that okay?
That's fine with me, yeah.
Okay, I think I would prefer that so that, Steve, is that okay as well?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm here for. And actually, moderator, is it possible I can put my email address in the chat?
Well, we have disabled chat
okay.
the potential for abuse. So
okay, no, that's I agree with that. Okay, and I don't want you to have to Renee, I don't want you to have to give out your information. I can just give you if you can keep a note here. I got my email address.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just my name, Steve, STEVE Sodergren, and that's SODERGREN at, and it's at dca.ca.gov.
D as in dog, CA.ca?
Yeah, for Department of Consumer Affairs. Yeah.
Okay.
.ca.gov.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you could just shoot me a note, I can kind of give you some updates or what we're talking about from it. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for being patient. Our moderator, are there any other comments?
yes, we have another request from Rebecca Gonzalez. And Rebecca, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. Good afternoon. I apologize. I had to miss a little bit of the middle of the meeting, but I came back on just as Adrienne Chilton was making her comments. And we also do want to support a future agenda item to talk about creative and maybe new solutions to addressing backlogs and licensing as we go through this workforce crisis that we're having. It's probably been there for a long time, but COVID-19 has really exposed the fact that we don't have enough mental health therapists. And so I think this is a really timely issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just as a reminder, because I know even Adrian had a suggestion for future agenda items. We do have on the next agenda item suggested for future agenda items. No, it's okay. It's a recorded session, so we can actually take that input and move it into the next agenda item in terms of we take note of it, so you don't have to repeat yourself. But that's also for Adrian as well. Thank you, though.
Sure. Sorry about that. That's because I went in and out of the meeting. Wasn't sure where you were. Thank you.
It's all good. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, we have a request for comment from Jennifer Alley. And Jennifer, I'm sending you a request to unmute so you can have your 2 minutes of speaking time.
Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Alley with CAMP. I also have an issue for a recommendation for future item of the agenda. And I guess, each board meeting, this is always just a little bit confusing because you want comment on items not on the agenda, and that's before the board has the opportunity to make suggestions. So it's kind of like, we want the board to think about something. It'd be nice to give them the heads up before you guys, identify things, relevant for your next agenda. So it's just a little awkward always each time. So I'm going to go ahead and wait, and I'll type in comment when we're actually on future agenda items. Thanks.
Thank you for the feedback, Jennifer. Thank you. Any other comments?
And there are no other requests for public comment at this time. I can close up the Q&A for the moment.
Thank you. And we are coming back to the board. And at this point, unless there are any other comments, we are opening the agenda items 24, which is suggestion for future agenda items. Perhaps we can work with staff. I know we always follow these procedures. I believe it's a standard procedure, but again, we're open to see any other ways that could be more efficient in the future. I'm definitely open to look at that.
Nick, and I'm just going to switch them in the agenda and call for suggestions before public comment.
It could be a way to go. From how Jennifer was referring to, I think that could be a way. I see John Savek with his hands up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I have two proposals for future board agenda items. They're very closely related. One would be to look at the feasibility of creating a consortium with Department of Consumer Affairs, Board of Psychology, and the Medical Board of California to explore the influence and effects of corporate telehealth on California consumers. I think we need to work with other agencies, not just within ourselves, because I can't imagine that the Board of Psychology isn't always examining this, that because psychiatrists are under the medical board, that they're not looking at it as well, that perhaps we do a consortium with other agencies, take the lead on this and trying to create conversations. So I'd like to look at creating the feasibility of creating that consortium as a future agenda item. And then I'd like to propose another consortium, which will be with DCA, the Board of Psychology, and ourselves to look at how we can address the encroachment of coaching on our mental health professions and what best practices we can bring into play, coordinating with these other organizations and seeing what actions and decisions that they're making.
Thank you, John. Anyone else from the board with any Kelly Ranasinghe, and then we have Susan Friedman.
I'd like to second John's future agenda item, but also to address the initial speaker, I'd like to ask for a future agenda item to address the deficiency in workforce in clinical children's services. And as someone who's worked in child welfare for nearly 20 years, particularly related to the rise in short-term residential treatment programs in California and the fact that we do not have enough people to work in those programs and the programs themselves. So that would be my request for a future agenda item. Again, I second John's idea for a consortium, and I suggest that we also include the AGs in that consortium.
Sorry, that we include, I missed you. Sorry, Kelly.
The AGs, the Attorney Generals.
Oh, okay. I couldn't get it. Thank you, Kelly. Any Anyone else from the board? Let's see. I know Susan. I'm sorry. Susan, you're next. Susan, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
Sorry, I was knocked off for a second. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but I third all of the things that John and Kelly said, in addition to which I think we need to look into what needs to be done to increase the number of therapists who speak Spanish and Asian. And right now, those are the two big classes of languages.
Okay, thank you, Susan. John, hold on just a second. I think before I go back to you again. Okay, yes, John Slavic.
Susan, I was wondering if we could also take your future agenda item and modify it just a little bit to just make it a multilingual therapists. I think we are limiting ourselves by only looking at two. Yes, they are highly necessary in our field, but I think multilingual might be a more thorough approach to understand what we could do as a board to try and create more access for people who want therapy.
I agree. My only worry is that when we were talking about translating the minutes or something like that, I think that we were told it was extremely difficult to do it beyond those kinds of languages. So, I mean, I think what you're saying is totally right on, and I totally agree with it.
Okay, thank you both. I believe now we can go to the public as well for suggestion for future agenda items. Moderator, thank you again. And in the meantime, Adrian and Rebecca, if you're more than welcome to speak again, but your comments were taken in the previous agenda item, so I don't want you to be worried. But if you feel like you want to reiterate your points, you're more than welcome to do so on this agenda item. Thank you again.
So we have reopened the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. And we do have our first request for comment from Ben Caldwell. Ben, I will be requesting you unmute your microphone and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ben Caldwell, LMFT. I know there was a presentation yesterday on the board's disciplinary process, and I thought it was a very helpful presentation. I wonder whether in a future agenda we might look fairly holistically at the data surrounding that process. My understanding is that the current data suggests that the majority of those put on probation actually don't successfully complete the license probation process and restore themselves to good standing. That would mean that most of them either reoffend or simply, as is often the case, give up their licenses. It would be good to get a sense of what the data actually shows about how people progress through the process and whether data can inform any future policy or process changes that might help meet the dual goals of both protecting the public while also remediating clinician behavior to make sure that it is, in fact, in keeping with current legal and ethical standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
And Adrienne Shilton has represented that she does not need to comment again. She is thanking you for recording her previous comment.
Thank you, Adrienne. You're welcome.
And I do not see any other requests for comment from members of the public. Shall I close that feature?
I don't mean to call. I know there was also Jennifer that wanted to speak on the previous one, so I want to make sure that maybe, I don't know if she's connected or not because I can't see her.
She just did send a request for comment. Jennifer, let me go ahead and send your request to unmute your microphone so that you can have your 2 minutes speaking time.
Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Alley with CAMP. Thank you, Max. I didn't hit enter after I typed comment. User error, you'd think all day I'd know how to do that. But regardless, I just wanted to echo Adrienne and Rebecca's comments about, having a discussion, in the future about the applicant process and what we can do to streamline and make that a little bit more efficient, so we don't have the backlogs that have occurred over the last few years. And really appreciate that the board has included that in their strategic plan that was discussed earlier. And so we just really look forward to partnering with you and looking to help improve the process. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
And now there are no further requests for public comment. I can close the public comment feature.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And actually, I believe, Kelly, our board member, Kelly Ranasinghe,
I'm sorry, Max, I completely forgot. March is National Social Workers Month. Can we add an agenda item for a resolution?
Okay, noted. Ooh, we just lost Kelly, but we got it. No, now you are.
You got it?
A connection. Yes, we got it. Yeah, it was clear, but then you disappeared, so I was concerned. And then we have Ms. Ortega as well. Thank you.
Yes, I would love to explore ways to have more participation in these meetings from the public. I learned so much from our presentation yesterday and today, right, about all the policies and everything we're creating. And I would love more people, right, either consumers or therapists to come to these meetings so we can speculate on ways to create that. I think that would be very, very amazing for all of our efforts. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Well, we have a lot of suggestions apparently, and which is good. I don't see any other inputs. If that's the case, actually, this is the time where we are actually adjourning our meeting to our May 5th and 6th, 2022 board meeting. It looks like so far we're going to be in person, and then our staff will send us the appropriate location and so forth. We will also, for our audience, still have the opportunity for people to log in and connect via our websites to actually watch the meeting as well. And so that was a listed feature that we had pre-COVID. So I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that in case you cannot make the in-person meeting. Again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our staff for being here. Thank you to our partners, our audience for being so participative this time. And we're looking forward to see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.